everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello, welcome to Sprockets. I'm Dita. No, that's what I really felt like, though. I'm really excited. This is another Neuropa, Neuropa. You know what I'm saying here? It's like a Neuropa. This is, well, we've got Herr Klaus. Hello, Herr Klaus. How are you? Guten Abend. Is it? I don't even know. I feel like it is at this time. And you're muted, so you're gonna have to ask to unmute. And Raph, welcome back, Raph. How are you? Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Dude.
Hey, guys.
Is that today?
It's tomorrow, right? Is your birthday tomorrow, Raph?
It's yesterday, but
Whoa!
just recently, I was like, I don't know why people are so fetishistic about this. How accurate, Xirtus, by your intuitive estimation, is the Gregorian calendar? And can we actually rely upon it that within the year it really is,
Well, that's that's a good one, actually. So George Washington's birthday is February 18th, but they celebrate on the 19th or the 21st, depending, in February, which is already a messed up month. And there's all kinds of, and this happened to everybody born in the 1800s. They had to switch their birthday, and they would quietly have a cake on one day while their friends came over on another. So that is a real thing. But I don't know. I mean, the birthday is more of a metaphor, and it's like, I don't want to not celebrate the birthday. You've seen how the Jehovah's Witness skit about birthdays, and like that wasn't good for Michael Jackson, So happy birthday. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
Well, there's been a lot of crazy stuff that's gone on in the world, not necessarily in Germany that I know about. You guys know
in
more.
Germany as well.
You guys can tell me all about that, because the first
Austria
thing
as well.
Yeah.
Go on.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, let's do it. Let's do a quick Italy, though, because I feel like that's the one. I mean, we talked about this on Based AF, but I think it's an important one. Is Giorgia Meloni, who is part of the Italian youth right, was like a nationalist group that was into socialism. Don't put those words too close together, but they consider her a very right-wing person. She's kind of cute. I think someone said her opinions make her a 12. I don't know. What do you guys think about Giorgia Meloni? Is this just another, is this the Fox News of Europe? What's going on with her? Are they going to save everything? The European conservative reformist party of the EU? Because that's the thing. It's not just Italy. They want to hit all of the EU, and but they're calling her neo-fascist. Any truth? What do you think?
All right.
You go first, Raphael. You go first.
All right. So I just heard about this yesterday, and in local Austrian talk shows, they're like, "Oh my God, this Meloni, what's going on?" And I was like, "Okay,
this
what's
Meloni
happening?"
baloney, right? Yeah.
I was thinking, whatever. So what I'm just seeing on her wiki page is she was Minister of Youth under Silvio Berlusconi. I'm not sure how great of a heritage that gives you, but honestly, I really have no clue about her. I haven't looked her up, so I really don't know. I only know Berlusconi, but you had to talk with Sagami, is a big time Freemason, deep state, who knows what else. I can't say more about her, so I don't know about her.
What you got, Richard?
I'd say this is just basically Italy. Italy is so fragile, and their way of doing government and finding new governments and doing elections is all so fragile that she's a little blip, like when you talk about the pendulum swing, she's the pendulum swing to the absolute right that Italy is going to do for, I think, 3 to 6 months, and then they will see that she has no clue of any fiscal policies, and then it's going to swing back, and they will find their answers in socialist policies again. I don't give a fuck about Italy. Italy is like, I don't know, it changes so fast over there, because everything's so fragile with them. It's a country like an Italian sports car. It's super fast and it breaks down all the time.
So is this Greece is this Greece in 2014? Is this just a repeat of the,
No.
So why is it different? And just to remind Americans, Greece went and they had their own party, which they conjoined with the Socialist Party and created this alt-right populist party. And it was pretty popular in Greece. But then Greece was still swallowed by the EU. And now Germany has to write their checks like reparations for everybody, right? Is that what's going on?
More or less. Like, we give them money and then we force them to buy our tanks with that money. So it's a little more complicated than that. But I think Italy is not as fragile as Greece yet. They have another 10 to 20 years to go, because they have a strong economy still. They still build cars. They still have actual factories and stuff. Not much left, and most belongs to the Chinese already, but they still have actual workers with actual workers' opinions. And that's why their policies are swayed so easily, because the workers' plight is never ending, and the answers that are given change every 6 to 12 months in Italy. And so I don't give much about their policies. They're not they can't extend much force into the EU. You know, they can't force policies like France or Germany can. And so I'm not too worried. I just think it's funny. She's just the latest, the latest Ann Coulter type Republican righty fembot.
That's kind of what I'm at. Is it just that? Because the thing is, she keeps talking about family, but she's like from Sardinia and Sicilian. So I keep wondering, when she talks about family, is she talking about the family, right? And is she just, because her connections to propaganda I'm going to get Leo Zagami pretty soon again to talk about this, but there was a collapse of the mafia, right? The mafia is the family. So is she talking about the revitalization of the family in a different way for Italians? You know what I mean? This is about the mob.
Most Italians understand that in the same way, because the way the Italian clan, like every Italian family operates like a junior mafia in a way. If you want to be a bit satiric about it, but the way they hold up family values and traditions and the way they look out for each other, every Italian family is sort of a little mafia.
Dude, the Maloney and the Bologna massacre, I'm not saying they're tied. I'm just saying though that she's related to some like tax families, and so it's an interesting thing. So I have to wonder, is she really like is this just like a power grab in Italy for the mob to get back into power, or is this? You don't think so?
It's an expression of populist opinion, populist right-wing opinion. Have you looked at Sweden? Because Sweden is basically going through the same thing right now. It's a slight majority for the right wing. That's basically just based on the apathy of the left wing, because they only get the numbers because the left wing people don't go to vote at all anymore.
This is a good one. Adam brought this up. Swedish prime minister formally resigns after right-wing bloc wins vote. And so Sweden's social democratic prime minister, Magdalena Andersson, on Thursday handed in her resignation after a right-wing bloc that included a nationalist anti-immigration party, which won a narrow majority in Sweden's parliament. So yeah, what is going on here? Are there really like right-wingers in Sweden? Are they in power? Is that, or is this sort of, as you said, populist? What does that mean?
Trying to get a majority of the population behind you by like saying that you will fulfill their basic needs, which they haven't seen fulfilled in both those countries, in Sweden and Italy, because the paradigm shift inside the social realities just hasn't transpired into the government cast. That politicians don't know the realities of the suburbs of Stockholm or Milan or Rome,
Brutal. All right. So, what's going on? You guys are saying in Austria and in Germany as well. There's been a few things.
Well, I'll just give a very maybe anecdotal, fun reference, but it's well documented. So, we could do a whole show about this, how the recent Austrian government, there was a coup basically, but it was led by by the political class. So hasn't been really registered as such. However, you had and still have in power the main party, which is I guess you would call them People's Party. So the technically conservative party. And they basically had their emails or their WhatsApp messages released that they sent to each other. And they literally even there called each other like family. So just in terms of mafia, and they are probably even just really small time fish, but yeah, the other thing I sent you with the voter turnout is just because I'm not a big believer in party politics. And if we even just look at voter turnouts and how many, I think the democratic system has no legitimization at all, but yeah, this
is interesting. So it's all of these ICC court countries that are the highest voter turnout. That's pretty interesting. Vietnam, Ethiopia, 93%.
ICC court?
Yeah, so the International was ICC, International Crimes Court. Is that what they call it? The ICC Crimes Court. What's it called? International Criminal Court, right? So the UN and these world organizations, there's a thing called the International Criminal Court. It's an intergovernmental organization, an international tribunal that's seated in The Hague in the Netherlands. And what they do is they go to countries that have had war crimes, and then they salute between the two countries the tribunal. And so in Africa, when there's been like two tribes, especially, they like to go in there and have a say over what happened. And then one group ends up with a bunch of war criminals, and then the world ends up with international case law for states that follow the Supreme Court, this quasi Supreme Court that's been created for states, international states. So it's sort of a gradual circumvention of autonomy for each country, because each country eventually starts to believe, oh, well, the ICC ruled in this way and that should affect us, when it shouldn't, but you agree to in the ICC.
And just to be clear, we have the very same thing with the, how is it called, the court for crimes against humanity, or what is it called in Den Haag, the war crimes court?
Yeah, is this not the same thing?
Which is not, probably that's that's probably one. Okay, I understand. Yeah, right. Yeah, because you see, to the east there is less and less adherence to it. There's also the European High Court. There's all these kinds of things, and then of course you have in Israel this very nice building which is supposed to become the, I guess, World Court. I'm sure you know about the building, Andreas, right? This pyramid in Israel. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a joke, especially if you know that even the supreme judges in many countries are actually appointed and not even elected, So, I mean, haha, yeah.
The Israeli election in the World Court with the pyramid on the roof, and then here you go, sinister dice. Well, but the Rome Statute is the treaty established an international crime court adopted at a conference, a diplomatic conference in Rome, Italy. And you have to remember, Rome is a Vatican location that has its own sovereignty and is recognized by the nuclear energy, atomic energy commissions to give it sovereignty, which is pretty interesting because they have, I would think, the ultimate say.
They have a fusion reactor in their cellar. I just sent you something else. Just maybe to put it on the more fundamental level, this is an article by Michael Tessarian called "The Constitution Con." I like to bring this up because, especially now, as politics worldwide has become extremely absurd and I would say blatantly anti-populous, many people say, oh, we have the Constitution. Of course, in America, they always go on about it, Second Amendment, First Amendment, not even saying I disagree with them.
Emphasis on amendment, though. It's an amendment.
Yeah,
right.
That's interesting. They always talk about amendments, never about anything else. And in Austria, it's the same. We have the Bundesverfassung, I don't know how I'm going to spell
that. How am I going to spell that? Tell me.
Bundes.
VERF with a V, not a B.
Oh.
FASSUNG, Verfassungsgericht. Yeah, this is German, and probably even saying it wrong now. 1 second.
What a great word, though, right? That looks like a word. I mean, it looks dirty. I mean, there's some bad stuff in those letters.
And even here, even just the wording itself. Okay, I hear you have it in Austria. This is the link. So even just the name, it's a Bund, and a Bund is a binding, And even here it says federal. We talked about this recently. What does federal mean, So what I want to just get at is this idea that Tessarian brings up with the concept of parchment idolatry. Because, of course, now, if everything is so absurd, one could say, oh, we have this great document that actually makes some kind of sound rules. But how many people ask the question, was this document initially really created for the benefit of the people? What comes to mind for me now, of course, is the French Declaration pour les droits de l'homme, the French Human Rights Declaration. And you have the huge, pyramid on top and everything. This nice document. I'll look it up for you.
Oh, this reminds me of this, right? Can you hear that?
Nope.
No? Okay. Let me pull this back for the Germans. It's worth it. So, share sound. There we go.
Symbol, das verwendet werden kann, Häuser zu bauen, Feuer zu machen, zu verteidigen.
So, like the idea of fasces.
Ist ein Werkzeug. Also ein interessantes Symbol, das sie verwenden, Fasces darzustellen. Wie eine Reihe von zerbrechlichen Schilfrohren. Wir sind zusammen stärker, wenn wir verbunden sind. Und es wird zerstört, wo immer wir hinsehen.
Dude, I'm sorry, I get too excited every time I see that. I know Americans are like, but that's what we're talking about. This idea of fasces representing federalism. Kind of interesting.
Did you know the fasces, it's the same root for the faggot as well, the bundle of twigs.
Right. I just saw a show. Where's the thing on
just
this?
Before we go on, pull up the last link just so we can show the document. So this is the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen de 1759.
Yeah.
Non, pas 50, 89.
That's good enough.
So this is, so just open the image basically, just so everyone sees, and just tell me, what is this?
Wow.
Why you put this on front, on top? And
Yeah.
this is one of the first of these constitutions. So I'm just asking the question. It may all sound nice, and especially with the US, we already know it's a difference between United States and the United States. I think same with California and all of that. They do this trickery with very small words, and they always change the definitions in the background. And then you read it as a citizen, even though understanding what that means. And then you believe it's all for you and it's so nice. But if some of the definitions are changed in their actual meaning, you know, it doesn't really necessarily mean that this document was really made for you, you know? So yeah.
Women's rights, homosexuality, Bill of This is crazy. All kinds of things are covered. How old is this? 1700s?
1789.
All right.
French
So they're all part
Revolution.
of the same club. I was going to say that the show I saw recently, The $1 Billion Code, which is translated in every language, but it's a German show about East Berlin, and they get their hands on KGB money smuggled out of after the fall of the wall, but they don't give it back. And then they buy a Silicon Graphics Onyx computer that they use to make the Terminator 2 graphics. And they use that to invent TerraVision, which is what Google stole to make Google Maps. And they lose the court case because they're Germans. You know what I mean? It's like they have to lose. It's like it's destiny, but it's amazing. Because part of the deal is you've got this lawyer who's going around and he's saying, when I was a boy, ein Kinder, like my vader, my father used to tell me, you know, and he'd give me a bunch of these toothpicks, and he'd say, you know, if you can break these toothpicks, I will take you to the, you know, the fair or the, you know, the park, something like that.
Yeah.
And the kid's all week trying to break like a bunch of toothpicks. And then the father comes back to him at the end of the week, right before they go to the fair. He's like, I didn't say you had to break them all at once. And he takes one and he breaks it, one, he breaks it, one, and he breaks it. Teaching him all about the, you know, how you build something up to give it strength, how you break something down. And that guy becomes the lawyer, and he takes him to the park. So it's like, it's built into, I would think, German culture, just this idea of the strength in numbers.
But even just very briefly here, the big question is, because the fascists, even now we know it is in the back of the US parliament. I mean, it's like everywhere if you really look. And in a way, it seems like a good symbol. Even the official motto of the Austrian emperor's family or something, I believe, is E pluribus unum, you know, out of many, one. I guess it's also in your presentation. And I just want to know, in a way, it's a nice symbol, you know, unity and so on, and by coming together. Or does it mean like one by one breaking the will of indigenous cultures and then binding them together to put my axe on top? I'm like, you know, is this what does it really represent originally?
The original symbol didn't have the axe. The axe is added after the sacking of Sabines and the raping of Tarpeia. So there's like a July 4th for Italy where they celebrate stealing Italy every year. And they're like, remember that time we killed a bunch of dudes and took their wives and their land? Happy Italy, you know, but that is where they get the axe head. And before that, you have women with braids in their hair. And the word fascia also means muscle, like, so the muscle in your arm. So there's a lot of other context before it gets to the point where they're like, hey, we could really use this for some brutal purpose. You know, we could actually add an axe head to this. It's also rope, you know.
What's certainly interesting to me, and maybe Richard, you know more about this, I think in Italy it's the same. I think in Germany also, that they were all supposedly only 150 years ago, like really small, almost city-states, no? And they only just recently joined in this union that is now called Germany.
Yes.
Right?
For Germany, it was like 1846 or something. Paulskirche, I think.
It's again these kind of dates, you know, 1850, all the revolutions, Austrian-Hungarian revolution, all the thing, and suddenly you have all these big nation-state blocks coming out of nowhere. And I still want to know, and I think there's a huge rabbit hole about this as well. Maybe even you told me about this, Andreas. Who is allowed to register a state flag, and where do you do it? You know, there's this international house for the record of officially sanctioned and recognized state flags. And I'm always like, I'm sure like random Joe Schmo can just go there and be like, oh, you know, I got this state for whatever means, register my flag, you know? So, yeah.
But, and then again, there probably is a way that if you know how, somebody who's connected can, you know, if he wants to do that and create a state. One thing I think about is like how all the Austrians speak with Arabic accents. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a great example. But you've got the siege of Vienna, and everyone's always talking about how, oh yeah, dude, like we were so Austrian, we just weren't Ottoman. You know, that's what happened. Great story. But, you know, the more you look into the siege of Vienna, the more it sounds like you've got tons of Viennese and Austrians in general who were under the Janissaries and were Ottomans. And it would explain a lot why they have all these coinage, all this money, all the language is influenced by Arabic. There's a lot of Arabic influence. Even just being called Alaman, right? Just like, that's kind of weird. Like Allah's men, you know?
Oh yeah, and I'll bring up again what Stefan said last time, because Hafiz, whom we had on the show, and he said there were three things. So people in Austria, you know, they like to hate on the Turkish guest workers or whatever. I mean, not really so much anymore, but you know, all
Dude,
this
without
story.
kebabs, you'd be nothing. Are you kidding
Well,
me?
but even here, what is very well known Austrian culture is like the croissant, which is literally like a moon. You know, it's like Kipfel. This looks like a Turkish flag basically. And there was something, coffee, of course, coffee, Viennese coffee, or beer is a Viennese, yeah, and dancing the waltz, which is the Sufi dance, but with two individuals. You know, so I mean,
fuck.
it's yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, so we have this idea, and people are always, why were the Germans so interested in folk culture? And they were kind of deviating from Christianity in the Catholic sense in the 18th century, in the 19th century. I mean, it seems, and there's a lot of connection to Turkey. So like this Arabic connection to Germans is pretty interesting. Richard, do you have thoughts on that? You seem like to click.
Yeah, I actually have a thought on that, because I actually am an Alemanne, because I'm from the southwestern area of Germany.
I could totally see you in a fez. Yeah.
No, my point is, we usually like to trace it back not to Allah's man, but to the ale man, you know, the beer. We're the man of beer, basically.
I get that. That makes sense. But ale's against the rules for Muslims. So that's another interesting thing. I wonder if that's like a big thing. Like we drink beer to be not Muslim, you know, because the Christians.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, like an Oedipal thing to forget your ancestry.
Brutal. I mean, so we did the translation, or Raf and Martin were doing the translation of the video, and one of the things they noticed was Targaryen kept coming up. Where did I have?
I mean, I think this we actually have. Just open up. You can just open up any of your recent videos where you have your intro, where it says, and at the end of the intro, it's auto translating. Not one of your videos.
If I go to like, yeah, okay.
It's on the intro. Yeah,
that's really fun.
Yeah. Eugen,
like maybe
yeah, this one even, yeah, just on the start.
Okay. Oh, but this one's playing right now, isn't it? Oh, no, it's not.
No.
Cool. Okay.
And then go to the end of the intro and then turn on CC.
CC. Targaryens, there it is, right there. Hey, tune in to recent Targaryens. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I mean,
fantastic.
So on one hand, that's amazing, because it sucks that they're not acknowledging Tartaria, but it's awesome because that's a way bigger hashtag. And so if that's going to get cycled around, like people,
I mean, even here, actually, Andreas, you should just add Targaryen to every post you're doing. I mean, aside from the idea, again, all about definitions, but then I saw this and I was like, okay, recent Tartarians, recent Targaryens, it sounds similar enough. But then anyone who's looking at the show, they're always filming in these old, for lack of a better term, Tartarian buildings. It's all about that, you know? It's, yeah, I mean,
right.
I know too little. Maybe Richard, you can, fill in more. It's
give Targaryen pill us real quick. House of Thrones pill. What is the deal with the show? Because obviously they have,
and also Targaryens. I mean, look at them,
dude.
Yes,
that's
Aryans.
Dragons.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, the Targaryens are actually like the Aryans, because they're like very highborn, pale skin, silvery blonde hair, blue eyes, and they establish their base of power through incest. Like they always have those brother-sister couples.
Dang.
And that's why over the course of the lineage, they go more and more insane. And then you have like at the beginning of Game of Thrones, you have like the Mad King who basically brings the entire Targaryen dynasty into ruin. And so this new show is like the show about the downfall of the House of Targaryen. So it's basically all just Aryans having incest. And like in this in the metaphor of this Westeros world, they are the only family who has dragons. Like they are in command of the dragons, and the dragon is basically the nuclear bomb. You can flatten a city within minutes if you have a dragon and it has you have command over the dragon.
Interesting.
So it's all very fashy when it comes to the Targaryens. They're the fascies with the atom bomb.
Huh. So do you think a big part of it actually is just to some propaganda against Germans and against is that it, or is it more about look historically? I mean, because they're talking about states that don't exist anymore in a world full of states that have only existed for a couple hundred years.
Yes, and
Well,
even it starts with the Doom of Valyria, so they even fled from like a
Ooh.
complete cataclysm, you know, Doom of Valyria.
Really?
Valyria,
It's Illyria. Oh, not
Yes,
Valyria,
right.
Val.
Yes, Valyria is like their version of Atlantis, and the Targaryen family traces their ancestry back to that. Like, so, like basically a high elves thing with Tolkien, only they're just very pale humans in this case.
Wow, the Doom of Illyria. And that's interesting because I can't help but hear Illyria, right? Because Illyria, the Illyrians, Dalmatia, Siege of Candia, you know, thinking about the coast where the Balkan Peninsula inhabited by the people that Romans made stories about gods about, right? Like all these people that were along the coast here that were super tall and party animals and were crazy. And the Romans were like, yeah, those must be gods. Like those people, those are crazy. I mean, that's kind of the same story.
Yeah, in a way.
Valyria. All right. Well, so then in terms of Game of Thrones, do you think that there's more to it, or is it just like pulp? Like,
So I'll just
media?
say one sentence because I was wondering about this myself and just what I read. Supposedly, George R.R. Martin, I think I heard himself say this, he was inspired by real events.
Yeah, the War of Roses.
And then, of course, is always the question, you know, how much background information or what secret society do these actors, screenwriters, whatever, belong to, or what intuition do they have that they actually fill in some of the, let's say, Tartarian story as well. But it seems, yeah.
So it's
I
funny.
would wonder if not.
Someone says it's the Roman Empire, but that's even funnier because, you know, the whole deal with the Roman Empire and how they conscripted everybody from everywhere else. And they have stories about other people that they make into their own gods.
But that's
right?
even just from your presentation that you just showed, the History Revised, you talk about how a new prince is subjugating a new people and then forcing the new people to fight against the others. And with the whole Game of Thrones story, one important part is that the Targaryens land in Westeros and they subjugate all of the people, you know? So it's, yeah.
Dude,
all of
also
yeah.
lost and found technologies, because this is another thing, the idea that all this technology has been around for such a long time and that we lose it and find it again. And you know, the idea that they had the pantelegraph machine, which we've shown before, but just to remind people, the pantelegraph by Cassini is a fax machine. Caselli, I mean, it's a swinging pendulum pen that's connected by radio, and you can send a painting to another painting, you know, through radio and have this pen draw the same image somewhere else. You could have someone take a drawing of the or woodcut of the Alamo and then send that over the transatlantic to Siberia to Moscow, and someone in St. Petersburg could see this, right? Pretty crazy. But they also have a bunch of other ones like this, the music streaming service. We all remember those pianos that could play music. They had playing pianos all over the place, and you could go into any old West saloon and they'd have a ghost bar that played music. So it was like, it was ready to go. Like people would go in there and just be amused. That's pretty good. Robots. We talk about robots with the Clockwork Canard of 350 BC.
Have you seen that Westworld show?
Oh yeah. Westworld's all about this.
Where the robot piano always plays like those 90s grunge rock stuff and like Nirvana songs as a daunty piano tune.
Dude, we need more of that. Robot pianos are the way to go. I mean, everybody could have a robot piano, but the thing is, it doesn't even need to be that complicated because all you got to do is just like put the music into there. I don't know why it's covered in blood here, but that's it's artistic. But there's a couple more. The robot smartwatches. We've had smartwatches since at least the 70s that could do all kinds of weird calculations, day planning. Credit cards, 1865, they had credit cards, right? And then they charge plates that they had, aluminum, metal, steel, or copper. They'd slide the thing just like they had in the old 80s. You'd slide the card and it would make a punch of it. So they had that. Video games in the 1950s. The Nuclear Laboratory of Long Island built a bunch of video games. Gorilla Glass existed a long time ago. Beacons, we know this. Portable computers. Arguably, you go back as far as you want with portable computers. You go to the Abacus because everyone has that. But if you want just if you want a digital computer, you know, you even have these mechanical computers in the 16th and 18th century that are being used for mass census, like the Babbage calculators.
Yeah, like the Enigma machine is sort of a calculator.
Right. Enigma machine's good. Enigma machine and the Odessa machine. Go ahead.
And a fun story about Enigma machine, just very briefly. I believe also this one was created by Crypto AG, or at least Crypto AG was founded shortly thereafter in Switzerland. all the worldwide secret services starting using it because, oh, it's a Swiss crypto company. And once I even had one of these phones in my hand, it really says Crypto AG in the back. And 2 years ago, they released the official documentary on Arte, like the, you know, German culture channel, where they basically said, yeah, of course, the CIA approached them around that time or whatever, and they put in their particular key. So all those secret service that were ever using it through all these decades, they got spied on by the NSA or CIA or whatever. So yeah.
Oh, of course. That sounds
course.
about right. Let's see the wiki. Enigma machine deciphered early to 20th century German military. So they built, it was employed extensively by the Nazis in World War II in all branches of German military. The rotor mechanism scrambles 26 letters. I mean, they have also, what's the British one, the Odessa or whatever, that beat it, but they didn't release to the public.
That was the Alan Turing one, right?
Yeah, British Odessa computer, I think it's called. Or is there? I'll type Turing. Maybe that's the one. But there was one that wasn't released to the public until the 70s. It wasn't declassified. And even in the 90s, it was like it was admitted it existed. Someone had written about it in the 70s, but they didn't really want to admit it. And even now, how exactly the British computer system works. What's it called? British Spy Cryptology Computer. I don't know. Can't remember. Acorn, Amstrad, German.
In the meantime, I can read a super chat by Tristan
Yeah.
Meerkam. I've always wondered how centuries apart the imagery of Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda and Akkadian god Utu are the same. It's almost as if the timeline is fake.
Ahura Mazda, which is the other one? Utu? Uhu?
Utu.
Utu.
Akkadian god Utu.
Utu. So Utu, sun, also known under the Akkadian name Shamash, was the ancient Mesopotamian sun god. And then this is Ahura Mazda. So, I mean, the Occam's razor thing is like, because so many people in so many different places have the exact same characters. And they're like, oh, what do you worship? The sun? What do you call him? Shamash? What? Okay, cool. We'll call him that while we're in town. And then they go home and then they can continue to call him the same thing they've been called. It's the sun. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But for a lot of people, they're like, oh, wow, it's so crazy that these stories exist. I mean, these are the plays. These are the bar songs. Eventually the stories spread. I could see it being that it's all the same culture. And then later on, people are like, oh, no, they were completely separated for like 20 years. So there's no way that they could have talked to each other. And that doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of trade that's going on. So, but let's see, Ahura Mazda, creator deity, first known and most frequently invoked the spirit in Yasna, the word meaning Ahura is Lord and Mazda is wisdom. Utu, Nina and his wife Ningal regarded as his parents. I don't think it's exactly the same because one is the original creator and this one follows the idea of being the next gen gods, because they were really there's a lot of people that were really into next gen gods. They're like, this is the son of the sun, and it's even bigger, and that's like a big part of it.
And only because you mention it, I think tomorrow Stellium 7 will be on, and then you can, consider whether the Titans really are real,
That's the thing. Yeah. What do you think about giant creatures in general, Leviathans? I mean, you've got these pictures in Germany of people fighting giant dragons and things like that. Do you think that they just killed off a bunch of giant creatures, or?
I don't know about land-bound creatures, but I really want to believe that there's still some mega creatures living in the ocean right now. I want to believe that so bad.
Right.
Like there's so much stuff we don't know about the ocean. There's this entire, we are not allowed to go to Antarctica and all that shit. And I want to believe that there's something there.
And Dark Journalist even brought this up recently, whom you totally should interview if this somehow works. He spoke about this whole idea. Even, what's her name? Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine or whatever. She was involved. Maxwell. She was involved with this Save the Ocean thing or whatever.
Yes.
And so the question, of course, is because this is all strangely related, always these things to, UFO files, unknown phenomena and so on. whether they actually, surveyed the ocean for some reason. And also apparently there's particular laws, like if you are on the open sea or whatever and you find something, and in certain areas in particular, I guess Bermuda Triangle, but there's also it's called the hot zone, Bimini hot zone. That's one of those areas. You're not allowed to, I think, recover anything. Dark Journalist, you have it there. Yeah.
Right.
He's talking about this a lot.
Yeah, there's and then there's these temples and things. So I mean, this is interesting because there's also all these places where they're saying, hey, if you find anything, it probably belongs to a pirate, but it's in the local waters. Anybody who's gone in the last 10 years and tried to pull out treasure has been, the government shows up and grabs their stuff every time. So it's de-incentivized for people to look in the ocean to find anything, even in the Caribbean. But I mean, there are giant things. We see like the giant squid tears on the size of whales, so we know that there are giant things, and we know that squid can grow much larger than whales can, because there's nothing stopping them them from growth. There's also in the this area here, this is the Sea Cortez area. There's so many of these lost and found islands, which is the disappearing island in Sea of Cortez. I don't know if I can find it, but there's just a number of the, and then they just surprise desert islands in the Sea of Cortez that will appear and then they'll disappear again. So there's been a number of things we've covered recently in volcanoes that are producing islands that appear for like months or years at a time, and then they degrade and fall back into the sea. But it's huge amounts of dirt that's coming out, and it's coming out in such a way that you're not experiencing like volcanic seismic activity, really. It's just releasing dirt and land being created. So there's constantly new islands being created there and things that are being disappeared underneath all of that. By the way, completely unrelated. Did anyone watch Bo Burnham's Inside special?
No.
Dude,
I hate Bo Burnham.
Elaborate. I never really watched him before. So, I mean, he seems like he would have been. And he was on Netflix. So that's already a bad sign. But I liked the special. But go ahead.
Bo Burnham reminds me of a very particular brand of German, or mainly German, but Austrian as well, humor that I despise, which is called cabaret, which is a form of political satire, and which is often like accompanied by a piano. And it's just disgusting because it's so on the nose and so wannabe aesthetics and so pseudo-intellectual. And it's just like reaffirmation for elites in their opinions, in their already formed opinions.
That's exactly what it was. You're right. I think you're right. I know. I didn't hate it because of that, but that is exactly what it is. I agree.
Fuck Bo Burnham, really. Fucking
he was like, so like he apparently like he did a whole thing inside of his apartment recorded for
of course
COVID.
He did, because that's the hipster way to sell it. Oh, I did this all by myself while I was slowly going insane during lockdown, blah, blah, blah. That's all a fucking hoax. That's the production note. That's David Blaine.
It totally looks like, it's hard to believe he could have possibly filmed this by himself. The lighting is really good. The editing.
It's stage magic. It's
pretty suspicious.
That's the story you tell. That's the prestige. So, oh wow, I can do that. If he says he did that, you look at people what do in their living room. Look at YouTube. That's what people did during the lockdown in their living room. It looked nothing like a Bo Burnham special.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, some people like Marc Ribier, who really have the production skills and who did it for years before the pandemic, of course. But who the fuck was Bo Burnham before the pandemic? I had never heard his name.
I mean, I heard his name. I just didn't like. He did something that I didn't like. I remember, and I just didn't watch him after that. So that was all it was. But I mean, the fact that he wrote his music about, it's like, how is the best case scenario, Joe Biden? You're right. Yeah. Everything you said is true.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is, he's part of a grander problem I have, which is Netflix malaise. I'm sick of the forced Netflix memes. You know, the Tiger Kings, the Squid Games, the Insides, every time the Amy Schumer leather specials, the Stranger Things, like for almost 10 years now, we get this fake virality for those fucking Netflix products, and I'm just sick of it.
Dude, what is the deal? Like, so Tiger King, Erotic Joe, is that what he goes by? Exotic Joe, something like that.
Exotic Joe, yes.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I only thought about him recently. So there's twice in my life I thought about this guy. Once was when he didn't get pardoned by Trump, and I was like, huh? And the other thing was, when I think it was like 2 days ago, I saw a video and some lady was drinking tiger's milk in the 60s, and I was like, tiger's milk, you know what I mean? Or was Holy Mountain, especially. they drink tiger's milk. There's a dude like with breasts that are just tiger faces, and he's just squirting tiger's milk into the face of the dudes that are trying to climb the holy mountain. And I was thinking to myself, man, tiger milk, tiger blood, tiger energy, that whole Charlie Sheen thing. So I reached out to
Charlie Sheen. That's what I was thinking right now. Yes.
Yeah, I reached out to the Exotic
Tiger
Joe
blood.
guy just because I want to, and just because I was like, I want to interview, but really I just want to know what it's like to drink tiger's milk. You know what I mean? Because like I wonder what that does to you, and I can only imagine because look at him. But
did you see that they actually remaking the Tiger King as a drama series or like a comedy series with actors
about his
like,
life? Yeah.
No, like they basically doing a comedy show based on the Tiger King documentary, going full circle with the meta, you know. They basically made up most of the shit for the documentary already and like tried to portray this in the most dramatic light. And now they take this story that they mostly came up with themselves and use people like fucking Kate McKinnon from SNL to play those people again and like dramatize it. I don't get it. What are we doing at this point?
Dude, yeah, is German television or media any better at all? Like, you guys?
No.
Are you guys doing reality?
We talked about this before. We're a cargo culture of the US, so we get everything that you do with like a five-year delay. We're still fawning over this dude who like basically copies John Oliver. You know, we have nothing.
Yeah, you mean this Tagesschau, or which one do you mean? Oh no, you mean Jan Böhmermann. Of course, yeah. And it's so funny because I mean, I would never watch this, but recently, because he got kind of famous, and also this Jan Böhmermann, strangely enough, knew 2 weeks in advance before the Austrian government crashed and kind of leaked the information. There's really strange stuff going on, really strange. And yeah, it's really sad because just like Richard said, you said cargo culture, cultural imperialism, however you want to call it. We get the same shows. Either we just copy it like Malcolm in the Middle or whatever you have and just also have it all afternoon. Then there was a time where we had plenty of BS talk shows. And
reality TV.
And now it's just switching to Netflix. Now Netflix is just faster, I guess, you know. So it's
exactly. Now it's a globalized meme-based phenomenon where everything happens everywhere at once. And you get 3 months of Tiger King. Now look at Squid Game. It's Korean. The delay was, what was the delay between the Korean like success of Squid Game and the worldwide success? Was basically a month. They used to dub it or something. It was so fast.
I mean, everything I'm seeing right now is dubbed in every language now. So the $1 Billion Code's dubbed in like 6 languages from the original German actors. There's a new one I just saw. What's it called? It's like a new French one. I forget. But there's a new French Amazon show that's all dubbed, and it's dubbed in like Portuguese. Oh, there it is. I just saw it. Dude. There. Oh, a private affair. Un asunto vendo. I mean, this is like in 30 languages you can watch it in, and it has that dude from, you know, the Leon the Professional is in it and stuff.
Oh, really?
So it's like, so like they have these huge shows now, and they've got they're all dubbed in like every single language, and they're all coming out at once, so everyone in America can watch them. I mean, I don't know how many Americans are going to watch a show from another country because I feel like it's a small percentage of Americans that are interested in anything at all. You know what I mean? But that's I just want to say real quick, from that thumbnail alone, you see Jean Reno in this period piece outfit, and you read like 2 sentences, Galicia in the 1940s or something, and all I can think is like, oh yeah, it's the middle-aged white cis anti-hero again doing amoral stuff for a moral cause, you know? It's about the girl. It's about the girl.
Oh, well, okay.
So it's even more constrained, you know?
Then she's not even allowed to do immoral stuff. She's super virtuous all the time, so nobody can identify with her. That's how we read women at the moment.
It's more woke Tintin. It's Tintin's daughter kind of a show, and it's so woke. But these are the kinds of shows they're putting out, and they're cross culturally trying to hit the audiences at once so they can normalize reactions to everybody and make us all more of a world citizen. I feel like that's the idea, is trying to take us away from the individuality. What do you think about Grand Theft Auto 6? Do you guys, if that's not a complete tangent, there was this hacker the other day who got arrested because he'd hacked Grand Theft Auto 6, and he pulled out a bunch of frames. A bunch of people were worried about the game because it's going to have this female main protagonist who's probably woke, and we're not worried that she's female. We're worried that she's woke, and that they're going to, that's a big thing they've been saying primarily. The game was going to be less, for boys, less politically incorrect,
Yeah,
less sexual,
raunchy.
less raunchy. I think that might even been exactly the word they used.
Yeah,
So
because that's the dumb loud words they use nowadays when they mean controversial or probably offensive. No, it's raunchy. A
well, it's weird because there's a
raunchy.
lot of games that are way more offensive to me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like Call of Duties all the time. It's not perfect. There's a lot of problems there, but that's okay because you're doing it in the military and you're helping the military. And with
course.
Grand Theft Auto, it's like there wasn't really that much wrong with the game. I mean, you can go to a real strip club that's going to be way worse or whatever, and the game it's kind of a joke. But the game talked about BlackRock and reptilians and has conspiracy radio in the car while you're driving. And I feel like that's maybe the bigger picture thing. They're like, hey, this game's getting beyond the sensors and we can't stop it, right?
Since when do they have this type of radio? Since which edition? I don't think I heard that.
Oh yeah,
no, they stopped doing that. That's what I was about to say, because GTA really changed direction after San Andreas, like starting with 4 and then 5. It wasn't the same anymore. Like all of a sudden you had something like the Ballad of Gay Tony, like this pro LGBTQ DLC. Nothing against our LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters and all in between. But I just want to say, if you look at the missions in Vice City, you're like shooting porn stars and flying porn leaflets over the city and all that stuff. And now it's like protect this gay guy from like his prejudiced motorcycle friends. And
oh, really? The only thing
really,
I remember from Vice City is you were able to drive around in an ice cream truck and sell drugs.
And sell drugs. Yes, exactly.
There's one other game reference I'd like to bring up, Andreas. I put it on a chat. So the whole, I don't know, to anyone interested in, how should I say, a gamified state view of the world can play Crusader Kings 3. I hope soon they will release the Game of Thrones mod. But the interesting thing here, because I was already thinking, why is nobody creating a Tartaria mod for this game? Because all you do is look at maps. You have all these cultures and religions. And even just by looking at it, you can already tell it's kind of a murky history, even though it's all based on the official stories. Just go on gameplay or something, yeah. Or on a video for gameplay. And what's interesting is that there is no Tartaria mod, but this most recent expansion is about the fate of Iberia. So isn't that exactly this story, Andreas, that you always reference with Asturia? And because it's all about the Muslims, and basically it's about the fight of Muslims and Christians in Spain. So I was like, well,
erasure. Yeah.
So that's what this expansion is about. So in a way, it's not really Tartarian, but it's curious that this is dealing with this particular time in history.
Right. I mean, this is the frontwards revision of history, but it's an important one because after the siege of Candia and the conquest of Dalmatia, and you got the collapse of the Arabic control of Iberia, and that is the beginning of the erasure of all the Arabic books and the creation of all the new books. And so we consider this the Dark Ages because they turned the lights out, but there's just so much history there, right? I mean, that's why they hide it. But okay, Grand Theft Auto, kid pleads not guilty to hacking, 17-year-old suspect in youth detention facility. The game code, the pictures of the people, it all got out, and it was like people walking around inside of the Matrix without any like sets because they just have the character rig designs and stuff. But people it was like Grand Theft Auto was naked, and they didn't want to have their nudies shared, so they were kind of upset. So arrested in Oxfordshire on September 22nd, less than 1 week after, pleads not guilty. Confirmed cyber attack is the same teenager arrested earlier for hacking Microsoft and Nvidia, associates with a group called Lapsus $. Additional arrest suspected.
There's only one answer, like give this kid a job.
Yeah, exactly. But like what job is he going to get? His job will be to like hack hackers and to mess with them, right? For banks.
He could be like a hyper hat, if there's white hats and black hats, he would be the hyper hat, and he just hacks anyone,
Not anymore. Not after this. After this, he's going to have to work directly for the government. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most likely. They have him by the balls now. 17 years and you're facing like I don't know, 5 years in prison. They can get you to hack anything now.
And he can't touch a phone or a touch tone for 5 years or something like that. He could hack the banks. I don't know. I mean, but that's kind of crazy. Like, so we're at this point where, the 17-year-old kid's snooping around. And talk to Mike about this a bit tomorrow because he's into hacking and he was the first arrested for hacking in the 80s.
My first impulse, like how serious this got, and they charging him directly and blah blah blah, and they try to get this leak like contained so fast. The main thing it tells me is this is about a lot of money. Like the The
Yeah,
faster
I mean,
they respond and the harder they responses, you always think, okay, there's a lot of money involved. And if you look at the development cycle for those GTA games and how much it cost and how much money they still making on GTA 5 and even the compilations of the older games, you don't want to have any like line of code like outside before the game's released.
yeah, I mean,
I can understand that, but it shows how harsh the realities are now with
I wonder, yeah, the thing is, I wonder, is it just about the money, or is it about the fact that, you know, Grand Theft Auto is a state-sponsored propaganda machine at this point, and so they're worried about weakening the public relations campaign? Because when the game comes out, it's not just that they're going to make a lot of money, it's that they're going to implant into kids, and their parents aren't even going to be there to stop them, because parents don't want to watch their kids and listen to their games that the kids are playing. So what is this new Grand Theft Auto really going to be about? I mean, it's going to be, the story is about South America, supposedly. There's a lot of Marxism that's supposed to be going into this, because there's some revolutionary stuff, kind of like Far Cry.
Great.
Yeah, right. So doesn't it seem like
video games?
Doesn't it seem like this is the real issue? I mean, I know it's not Occam's razor. I mean, money is
No,
Occam's razor.
I mean, obviously, once you understand there's a Federal Reserve and certain people can just print as much money as they like, and you have a production that's so huge as this one, it's always about sovereignty over interpretation and, you know, definition of reality and culture creation, I would say. Most certainly.
I mean, it's like this new game, like I could just predict, is going to be affecting the way kids feel about international law and about border crossing, because the next thing they said is it's going to be bigger than just one country to another. You're going to be able to go all across, fly, get in a cargo plane, drop in, parachute into different countries. So the idea of like going
in Fortnite.
Yeah, exactly. They're stealing a lot of the gameplay, but the story, I think, is going to be even more about globalism and anti-statism. And that's kind of weird, because it's a story about stealing cars.
Yeah,
you know,
it used to be, but
right.
I don't know. You look at the Far Cry series by Ubisoft, for example. It's the same thing. Like they started out as this military shooter on an island where you like help this uprising, and then it became more and more like the political message became more.
Dude,
and
it
more
was so
clear.
creepy. Far Cry 6's poster is literally this dude holding the boy. You know what I mean?
That's,
like, what?
That's the Breaking Bad dude, isn't it? The Pollo Hermanos guy.
Pretty much. I don't know if he is or not.
No,
I mean, if he's
I think it's the actual actor. Like they digitized
Oh, wow.
him, and he spoke the lines.
Yeah, I played some of the game, and it's literally that, like, you're part of some like revolutionary military anarcho-communist Latin gang that's trying to defeat big money.
But the way they changed that is so fascinating, because the first game was like in this tropical island. It was very like, it was like a Schwarzenegger movie or something. It was so comical and over the top, and there was not that much of a political agenda. And then by part 3, 4, 5, 6, it's always the indigenous people, and all of a sudden you're this little indigenous girl, and the political message got more and more, I don't know, blatant, I want to say.
Yeah.
Like the theme of this uprising was always there. Like Just Cause games is the same thing. Like Just Cause went basically less cartoony and more political as the series progressed. And it's I don't get that, because video games are about escapism. I want more cartoony. I want more Bugs Bunny. I want like big cartoon explosions and, I don't know, bulging eyes and big fountains of blood. I don't want, I don't know, social political realities of southern Brazil in my video game.
Well, I mean, it's not just southern Brazil, because look at, you know, here's again, Germany warned by CIA, this is 2 hours ago, possible attack on Nord Stream gas pipeline weeks in advance. And from there, you know, these are the kind of decisions that are leading to the changes in the prices, because they're going to deviate it and watch it while, Germany will keep 2 of their 3 nuclear power plants running ahead of possible energy crisis. So, I mean, all these things are playing out like in your, you know, we're watching these tropical games or whatever, but the idea of state-sponsored terrorism and destroying gas prices, making it more expensive for you to live in whatever state you're in, that seems to hit you wherever you are, right? I mean,
Yes.
have you guys seen more of that? Go ahead.
But you can look at the UK as well. You can look at Austria, at France. Like this is a European problem right now with the gas prices and the energy prices. And I think we are handling it very poorly. But if you look at the newest incarnation of the blonde right-wing fembot called Liz Truss in the UK, she does way worse. So I don't know who has the right answers in this time of crisis, because our more leftist centrist, centrist wannabe, like as if left-leaning government is not doing too well. And I don't know, the Tories aren't doing too well either. I don't think Austria is doing too well. Macron with this fucking all-out neoliberalism in France is not doing too well either. Like, nobody knows the answers right now. I don't know, is Biden doing well right now? I don't think so.
How is the best case scenario, Joe Biden?
I mean, honestly, taking it on a, let's say, Kissinger level analysis, all these sanctions, and because I am well past, while I do believe that many of the politicians simply are very ignorant and so on and dependent, there is a strategy layer somewhere behind, and it very much seems like all the sanctions supposedly against Russian Federation are doing nothing but increasing the living expenses for Europeans to a degree that is the basis for what they hope to be, I guess, some kind of uprising or whatever they want to have, or street fights, which I don't see personally. But I would just say it's very obvious that it's really not about Russia, because even now it's been official. Russia raised their profits like 3 times or whatever. People were going crazy buying gas and so on. We have this merit order system in Europe, apparently, which means that you always need, if I understand correctly, buy energy for the highest price. So you have different types of energy and you always buy. I mean, idiotic systems like this, where you're like, this is 100% self-made. And it really seems to me like this is part of this attempted destruction of the European economy and whatever is left of any wealth and whatever. So, yeah.
But again, they're also doing the nuclear. So they're keeping the nuclear going, and that means, isn't that a good thing, right? Getting nuclear power, keeping nuclear power in Germany or everywhere.
You would think so, but the problem is our reactors are too old. Like, this is still late 60s, early 70s technology. It just kept running like basically 20 years too long already. And instead of like building new and more modern reactors, we started this renewables thing, then we stopped it, then we started again. And so we got into so much delay concerning all kinds of power, nuclear as well as renewable, that we just got stuck in this gas solution that the Schröder government got us in the late 90s, early 2000s, where we got this Russian gas was so cheap. It was like the best solution to everything.
Oh, and this can also be something nice to bring up. I mean, it's totally obvious if we think of Tartaria or whatever, there's other ways to generate energy. There is much more efficient conversion technologies. There is all these thousands of suppressed patents, even officially, eminent domained by the US Department of Defense and so on and so forth. And now, of course, I forgot my point. So go on.
I mean, well, so Austria, you've also got that. Who's the dude who's in charge right now? Who's like young and he hangs out with
No. He's already gone.
He's gone.
Oh, he's gone? Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So who's in charge now?
Well, now we have the least liked government in the whole world, I think, with the 20% approval rating, a guy called Nehammer. And also here, just brief story. I mean, just how absurd it is, because I don't believe in the promise of the state of security and so on. But this is the foundation of a national state, right? And this guy actually managed to be the interior minister. And during this time, he was warned by the Slovenians or someone, hey, there's a guy going around, there's something strange. And then you had this supposed terrorist attack in the middle of Vienna, in the city center. And strangely enough, just the day it happened, surprise, surprise, there were about 300 special force police just around the corner. Everything very strange. And even though he got warned, he was interior minister, he didn't prevent it or anything. Supposedly people died, and he manages to actually become prime minister. And I mean, like, how much more absurd can you do it? Like, you're breaking the basic supposed promise of the state.
These are the police, these are Austrian police. Look at these guys.
Yeah, this is another thing probably to
no
be
offense.
investigated.
They just look like they would be like, we could hang out. You know what I mean? They just kind of seem like bros.
They look like soft air cosplayers.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be the other question. But I mean, could you imagine having an interior minister, or how do you call it in the US? Minister of, no, not Department of State. What's in Homeland Security or whatever? Imagine you have a Homeland Security minister. There's a terrorist attack in your own capital city, officially. You officially got warned 3 weeks earlier or months by another secret service. And then this guy becomes prime minister. I'm lost, because even in the logic of a state or whatever, this makes no sense at all. Yeah, lowest approval ratings ever, and
Interesting. And so what has he been doing? Has he been lowest approval ratings around the world, or like the Austrians not like him?
No, I think around the world even, or at least in all of Europe or something.
Is that,
Like-
but isn't
I
that
think-
usually a good thing? Because like the rest of the world's doing bad stuff. Is he like a good leader?
Huh?
The enemy,
I
my
wish.
enemy is my friend. I don't know. No, but what's he? Is he a Soros guy or is he not? He's chill or what?
I mean, all I know is that he was interior minister while the other guy, Kurz, the young guy, was prime minister. So he
Okay.
seems he's
So
well
he's
enough
connected.
connected. It's not a new team or anything, you know. So-
Gotcha. So it's a continuation of the team. Wow. All right. Brutal.
It's no fundamental regime change or anything.
Yep.
It's just-
Carl Nehammer, World Economic Forum. There
Oh
you
yeah,
go.
there we have it. All right.
It's brutal. Okay. What about Germany? We still got that lady.
What lady?
Um,
Merkel? No, we got Olaf Scholz now.
Schultz. Okay. Oh, that's right. Olaf Schultz. Let's do Olaf Schultz. Tell us about Schultz.
Scholz is a very corrupt friend of the financial elites. Like he's been central to several big financial scandals, like the CumEx and CumCom scandal, which were like huge, like tax fraud systems, where basically they sold and resold stuff that didn't exist, and then claimed taxes on that, like 4, 5, 6. They sold stuff in a circle and then claimed sales tax for those sales that didn't even occur, and it went like into the billions and billions of euros, and he was
Dude.
central to that.
Yep. Okay. And this is a question I wonder about. Like, so why are they doing this to Germany? Because it seems like, wouldn't it be better to make Germany super wealthy since it has to support all the other states? Or is this part of some sort of a plan to just hyper tax people?
I mean, I don't think it's going to work, but honestly, again, this would be in line with all the, you know, whatever New World Order plannings
Yeah,
and so on.
exactly.
The controlled
You-
destruction of the economy of all of Europe, and ideally, you know, complete devastation, which I don't think is going to succeed. And you never know what parties are in the background and what interests align or don't. But this is certainly the push, and they want to do this. They dream of doing the same in Austria, having a left, which just means no values at all. Not that the right wing is not equally corrupt, but you know, there's no bars anymore. And yeah, I don't know, do this insanity. I mean, I really, by now, I didn't believe in it 10 years ago or whatever, but by now, if anyone still believes in these actors, I mean, I really can't help them. I don't know. I mean, actors, there you have Zelensky, you know.
Yeah.
You have the Rothschild playboy, toy boy. And who's the third guy? Okay, he's the CumEx guy. I mean, also interesting names. So there you go. I mean, good luck. Yeah.
I love how they cosplay what they are. One is the leader in war, one is the leader in the fashion world, and one is the leader of being the boring Germanness. Like it's
Yeah,
pictures. It's perfect.
it totally
Look at
is.
me,
It's,
I am the French guy. I look so good. Look
This
at
is what
me,
we're-
I'm going to war right now. Look at me, I'm the German. I'm boring.
this is like kind of when people get upset at Trudeau for dressing up, I think they're missing the point because Trudeau's doing the job the best. You know what I mean? When he blackface
You remember the movie Zoolander, the Ben
Right.
Stiller movie, where they had the walk-offs, the male models had the walk-offs. I want to see a walk-off between Justin Trudeau and Macron. I want to see them have like this male model walk-off, like at the Fashion Week in Berlin.
this is so real. It's so
Oh
brutal.
shit! Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
You can't even fake that. I mean, like, but so Germany and Austria, they're supposed to be more civilized, right? They're supposed to be more progressive. Is that not true? What do you think?
What do you mean by progressive? We have to work on our definitions these days, because the progressivism I see right now is not what you might think as of progressive, you know?
It's like
Okay.
what Dugin explained, you know, it's very simple, honestly. That's why I was so. Have you seen his interview with Dugin, Richard?
Yeah, not in its entirety. I have to confess, I fell asleep.
Yeah,
when 2 hours
I
in.
have to say, I was like, this is so spot on. It's a joke. And in terms of more civilized, I think the main difference, in my honest estimation, between this country and a maybe more outwardly corrupt country like potentially Romania or something, is just like here, you know, they have nicer suits and they have, you know, higher fines or whatever, and they just have a nicer veneer around it. But inside, it has to be the same corrupt system. Otherwise, it couldn't be part of the globalist whatever structure, you know? So
I've been
The way I
noticing.
see-
Oh, good.
It's just real aside. The way I see it, the more outwardly corrupt countries make it actually easier on the citizen because you can partake in the corruption. It's more low key, you know. you can actually get that permit for your, I don't know, carport or something. You just slip the guy $100 or something. If I slip the guy at the Bauamt €100, he's just gonna go to the police and get me for like trying to blackmail him, you know, it's not accessible for us to bribe a cop, for example.
Exactly.
So maybe it's easier to live in Slovenia or in Brazil, where you can actually get out of a ticket by just bribing the cop. You have more rights as a citizen if you just reduce it to the power of your wallet in that way.
I mean, so it seems like progress in Europe is around football. Like, so soccer game, World Cup happens, and then there's a lot of money goes into architecture and infrastructure. And then that's supported by Germans as well. You could see billions of dollars, not American football. Hold on. These World Cups, right? Where is it at? Beyond the global stadiums, Brazil returns to glory, builds this crazy stadium, costs what, $220 billion. They had to bring all the equipment. It was like Waterworld. They brought it down the Amazon. It sank. They had to get a whole bunch of new equipment. They left the concrete and everything in the Amazon, killing all sorts of wildlife, destroyed everything, built this thing, played the game, have a bunch of roads, which are sometimes used by trucks now. But the stadium's abandoned because no one's playing football there. And so there's just like birds and death, and it's falling apart. Qatar did the same thing.
Yes.
Did it hurt Brazil? You see this all over the world. Spain did this, where they destroyed the infrastructure.
Greece did this for the Olympics as well.
Yeah. So what's the deal with like going into a country, tearing everything down, and building one of these world stadiums, and all of the roads and like they have apartment buildings. They build an entire new infrastructure. Like, the country changes when the World Cup comes to town. It's like Eurovision.
Yeah.
I mean, construction is always a prime field for corruption and, money laundering. And now I remember my point. Xirtus, if you can just enter abiogenic oil production, I'm pretty sure you know about this. But just because Richard mentioned we get all this cheap gas or oil from Russia, and it's so cheap. And then you wonder why the Club of Rome and all of those predictions from 1970s, limits to growth and so on. Why didn't the oil ever run out, And here, of course, they will claim that it's a joke or whatever. But from what I can understand, there is at least a reasoning for how this could work, which would simply mean if you dig deep enough, there is potentially a virtually unlimited supply of oil. Not saying it's good that we use it, because this all started really in 1900 with the Rockefeller centralization of energy production. But just saying, so nobody needs to be afraid. And again, it's all artificial scarcity and memeing, to be able that people pay extortionate prices. And I think in Germany now you have a new law about home ownership or something, if it's Germany, Richard, I believe. Also something where they try to tax you even more, or like, basically they want to set everything now to resolve Klaus Schwab's agenda of you will be so happy and you belong to nothing. Yeah. So
the thing is, I haven't heard about taxes so far, but
whoa, Germany overhauls property tax system. What home?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Crazy.
Yeah, but the thing I noticed is that just in popular culture, like if you read the news headlines and stuff, there has been a recent attack on the single-family home. Like, the same as the political attack on the SUV and the car world, they're attacking the single-family home in the homeowner world, like as it's bad for the environment and the carbon footprint of the single-family home is too big and blah blah blah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
They're trying to get the people into the pods,
Dude, as I typed homeowning, it suggested, did you mean homeowning while being black? Which I don't like. Google. Yeah. I typed homeowning and it said homeowning while, did you mean homeowning while being black? I was like, what? But all right. So what I was looking up, which is actually weirdly enough related, is ableism. And so ableism is this idea that some have been afforded the ability that others have not, which is against equity. It's inequitable. Yes. And so because of that, the Soviets tried to ban marriage and they tried to ban family back in 1918. Today, we're looking at this more and more, people talking about how the family is ableist, but also how the home is ableist. Because if you have a home, you don't have to work for a home. So you don't end up in the corporate jam with a wage cuck position. And that's,
that's really inequitable. Everyone should be in that position.
Right. And they convince parents too. They're like, you should, make sure that your kids don't become lazy. Well, I hear that because you see, like, what's the 30-year-old man living with mom? Is there a meme? I'm sure there's got to be. Like, this is a thing. Parent wins court case to evict 30-year-old son. So it could go the other way. I'm just saying it could be just as bad. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know the whole situation. He seems kind of crazy. I'm sure his mom is too. I don't know.
Just a second, a question. Do you know the meme of the large adult sons?
And just briefly, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the things you bring up here are the bad example, but just thinking of Islamic cultures, or we spoke about Italy earlier, isn't there also a cultural and especially economic reasoning to actually have the family live together in a, large house?
Right.
Yes,
The
of course.
Amish.
That's something that's not wanted, because only like this you get everyone to be arbeitis, which means to be orphaned and work for Apple and Google, so
let's say you have got no grandparents, you move into a nice Amish home, right? Or let's say you've got you live at home. So then what you did was, when they built the home, they put it up in one day, because you put the walls up and it took a day to build the house, nice and easy. Then you add on then you add on another. And then when your kids have homes, they had homes, and this community sprawls out. And then someone, moves into the parents' house when they finally pass away, and it continues. But they're all living in their own homes because, dude, they don't have like phones or so they got to be close, and they don't have radios. So when they have sex at night, because they don't have TV, they don't want to be right next to each other. So there is a little bit of Amish have privacy. People don't realize that. They really do. But they've made it seem like it's just this crazy idea to live with your family, but they're not really living with their family. They're living in an extended community that starts to bridge out. And you can imagine if you have 7 kids each or something like that, this is how an entire like part of Philadelphia expands, or parts of Germany. But you pulled up the large adult sons.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because the large adult sons were like this meme, which also like pertains to the Trump sons, Eric and what's his face?
I saw that. Right. Yeah.
And it's basically saying like the large adult son who still has good relations with his parents, or still even might live with his parents. He's sort of a meme. He's like the laughing stock of the conservative family. And so that's like a mimetic attack on classical family values again. Like, oh, you're a large adult son, you still live with your parents. Oh, you have a happy family unit. Oh. Like as if that was a bad thing in any way.
That's an interesting point. They definitely, and they look at large adult sons on Saturday Night Live. So the idea of being a family business being called into question. Family businesses, man. Look that up.
And also, large adult son, that's fat shaming. That's ableism again, because the large implies that they're like of a hefty stature. And like on the left, all of a sudden, it's okay to call the right wing people fatties. Oh, the large adult sons. It's also bigoted.
only certain families are allowed to have family businesses.
Greed and lust for money is what's wrong with the United States. Now give me 99% of your income or I'll send the IRS, right? I think is the way that one goes, right? Well, yeah. I mean, so in Germany also, and I don't know if in Austria, is it the same? Like we were told that there's this idea of the right to pay, right? So like if you get a ticket, they don't even pull you over. They just send it to you in the mail. You have the right to pay. Is it harder to defend yourself or fight for your rights? Is any of that like the Constitution? We're like, oh, we could go to court and fight for our rights. It's hard, but how hard is it in Germany and Austria?
I always just paid. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know there's people that got into litigation over tickets or like small like marijuana fines or something, but I always just paid. It seemed easier.
Austria. What about you, Raf? Or you're in the middle of something?
So in that sense, it's interesting that you mentioned it like this, Richard, because this, while there is no bribery, maybe in this way there actually is a way to get yourself out, at least of minor misdemeanors, by having money on hand, cash. Yeah.
In a way, you bribe the state. Yes.
So it's similar in Austria. Basically, put for speeding tickets and so on, you can just pay a fine, and then they even sometimes tell you like, if you pay now, it's cheaper. If we have to send you a ticket, it's like 5 times the price or something. So I guess most people, if they can, they just like, okay, here, take it, whatever. Please leave me alone.
Yeah. So because like I noticed in Germany and especially in parts of like EU that have made these social justice laws, there's like a thing where if they can't refuse hiring you for like any reason.
Oh yeah, so we have very progressive hiring laws by now. It's very like all the application forms have to be like gender non-specific and stuff. They can't look at the photos before like look in which applicants they get in for an interview. It's all very anonymized and what is it called? Anonymized,
yeah.
Anonymized and like randomized as well. So they basically it's like sort of a blind date,
But because it's so random and because it's so anonymized, if they don't pick you, then you say, you didn't pick me because of some sort of discrimination, it's so ambiguous they can get away with that, and so people make their whole lives off of not getting hired for discrimination from all of the companies they can.
You can't really litigate for that in Germany. You can't really like sue them for emotional damages. That's not how our justice system works. But you could do that like a couple of times in a row just to stay on your state welfare services, you know. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, they're not going to bug you with any more job applications you have to fill out or something. You're just a lost cause then, I guess. So you're then set for the low income need life that the state still provides you.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's
you can
elaborate
certainly
that.
do that. Or the other part you could do, probably at least in Austria, is once you get a job that's like registered with Social Security and so on, I believe it's even the employer usually that pays if then you're sick or something. And that's the other thing that I always find so funny. I mean, I don't know how it is in the US, but at least in Austria, it's almost like in school. If you bring the right paper, in this case from your doctor or something, you know, everything is fine. You get paid for whatever, and potentially it's very dangerous for the employer, especially, of course, for middle and small businesses, because then you get people, they show up for 3 days and then they're sick. And you're the one who's left holding the bag, not only the recruitment costs, but also some part of the cost of that, the fact that they're not showing up because they're sick or whatever else. Yeah. So it's such a scam, everything.
I mean, but that's interesting. So like you could basically avoid having, I mean, so in America, there's a lot of homeless problems. Technically, there are ways of getting on social services, but in Europe, it seems like it's really easy. Is that right? Like you can just get the state to take care of you, not work?
It's not easy because they put a lot of like administrative stuff and fill out this form and be here at this time and go through this like schooling on how to write your CV. But if you jump through their hoops, you get the money, and the money is enough to barely scrape by. But it's not the comfortable living that the right wing makes it out to be. So, oh, they're all too lazy to work. No, because it's a shit life you're leading then. But it's possible to jump through the hoops and lead that shitty life. But it's nothing people really aspire to, you know. It's a last resort for people that really can't find a fucking job or are too lazy or too fat or too drunk. But it's,
well, if they're really too lazy or too fat or too stupid, they can still be counted as sick. So that's like a different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's why is it so, I mean,
right. What I wanted to bring up just briefly is that the real other issue is that, you know, you have these social services. I believe in Austria, it's a bit more money than in Germany. And in Germany, I think it's also more bound that they particularly pay for your flats. And here you almost get this specifically. Yeah. And here you almost get the same money and then extra money for your flat and stuff like this. So I think in this case, Austria is a bit higher on the, you know, social security wealth status, which also interestingly is being handed out to any and all immigrants or supposed asylums, who, of course, even according to international law, state, whatever conventions, usually you should apply for asylum in the first secure third-party state, right? And Austria is not bordering, or Germany is not bordering any war-torn country. So, but of course, all of these individuals also, they also get all of the money, which is, of course, causes even more contention and issues than within the political sphere and the populace. And the other real issue, of course, is some people can't find a job. I think many bosses simply are also insane. Who wants to work in this, you know, 9 to 5 system is also just not for everyone, I guess. And then the other real issue is that,
just a short aside, they just changed working laws in Germany, where you basically have to show every hour on paper. Like they basically made work time traction a lot more binding and a lot more complicated over the last week. It's really funny.
And then also consider, like, for example, with state support, it could even be more if you have children, if you really know what to do, if you go to certain church-sponsored social services, you could probably rack up even 1,500 euros a month of value without working. But then the real issue is, if you go to work and you have a low-paid menial job as a cashier or something, you can work for 40 hours and maybe you get 200 euros more. And then I'd even have to ask the question, even very sanely, is the exchange of your health and time really worth the 200 extra, you know? So it's
depends on how many hoops you jump through. If you go to Tafel every day to get the scraps of society and food, and all of a sudden you have 200 more, you just buy the food you want and you don't have to stand in line for scrap food every day for 2 hours. That's like a change in life quality that maybe is
Okay, I
an
mean, this
enticement
can
for
be
people to still
this can
work.
be a motivation, but this is already the very low end of in terms of I don't want to be shamed, so I'm doing it, and not
Yeah,
really, oh, I have an actually better life because I feel like I'm contributing to society and get an equal exchange of worth or value to be able to live a wealthier or higher standard of living. So yeah.
well, because those days are over. There is no equal exchange of work for value anymore. You're either part of a scam and you do nonsense work and get too much
Exactly.
money for it, or you
Exactly.
do the menial stuff or the essential stuff and you get paid way too little money for it. Like,
Yeah.
look at the healthcare system, look at the way we treat people who work in old folks' homes and stuff like that. I think it's the same in Austria. It's pretty abysmal. We get people
Well,
from
elaborate.
Slovenia because they're, well, we get people from Slovenia and from Eastern Europe to do all our like caretaking and medical profession, like, you know, all these nurses and stuff. They're from Eastern Europe because no sane Western European person can live that life for that wage. It's way too stressful. It's
Not
way
just
too
that,
harmful
they
for
have
for your sanity.
yes, from what I understand, they work like 24-hour shifts and jokes like that. And then
Yeah.
even just one small thing, there was a recent discussion in Austria where the right-wing party, the Freedom Party, said, oh, we want to evaluate the child support so that those children actually living in a cheaper country get less money. But then in Austria also you have probably thousands upon thousands of, you know, Slovenians, Romanians, whatever, and they may actually in a way prop up their real salary, which is much too low, with the
Yeah.
comparatively high, you know, we talk about $100 difference maybe,
Yeah.
child support. You know, it's like it's
Wow.
really bad. Yeah. So
I saw this article that was from InfoWars Europe that talks about Germany plan to ban native Germans from a third of jobs to promote diversity in the name of promoting diversity. Ruling Green and Germans, the city of Hanover, plan to ban a third of native citizens from applying for government jobs so that they can be given to migrants. You know, what do you think about this idea in general, like as a German, and you know,
What do you
how
mean?
well, yeah, like is it a good thing? I mean, it's not that, it doesn't seem that bad to have migrants in government unless it's horrible. What do you think?
We can't have migrants that high in government because you have to be a German citizen to get to certain levels of that.
Well, can't they just make him how hard is it to become a German citizen? Can't they just give him a piece of paper?
it's just a few
No.
years, you know.
Stamp.
No,
So
again, becoming a German citizen is not that easy. Like, we have some of the highest thresholds in Europe for that, I think, when it comes to like applications where you have to know stuff about the country and you have to be at this level of proficiency in the German language and all that.
Interesting.
It's
So it's very
not that
Starship
easy.
Trooper. Service doesn't necessarily guarantee citizenship. So they could
No,
just be working at the DMV. They're not necessarily going to be doing anything important.
When I moved to Sweden, I had my tax ID immediately, and I could have like applied for citizenship, I think after 3 months or something.
Wow.
And like Sweden is very low key by comparison. And that's also where they have some problems by now. Yeah. Dude, Sweden's bad. Like, we met in Copenhagen, right? Right across the bridge from Copenhagen. Yeah, and right across the bridge is Malmö. And Malmö is like, I don't know, maybe 300,000 people or something.
Dude, we
And they
met
had
Disney Princeton, and they're so. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I remember.
I mean, Sweden,
Yeah.
like, and I love Sweden, but parts of
Yes.
Sweden remind me of like a Native American reservation in the Midwest of the United States. They're just like, they don't allow them to drink. They make it illegal to buy alcohol, like unless it's warm. They don't want cold alcohol because then a Swede might go and just think, oh, well, it's 2 p.m. I'll have a beer, you know, and they don't want that. And so then you got people planning to drink, or like tomorrow we'll buy beer tonight and tomorrow we'll have beer, or weirder, they're like, let's just drink warm beer together in the middle of a park, which is just, it's okay, but it doesn't, you know, it's not classy.
Yeah. So anyways, like Malmö, this really small town of 300,000 people, had something like 200 like gang related shootings and hand grenade attacks. Like, Sweden has a real problem with hand grenades.
Hand grenades?
Hand grenades. They're leftover like grenades from the Yugoslavian war in the 90s. And
I knew it.
got in
I
over the
was
last
scared
20
you were going to
years.
say that.
Yes. And so,
Sweden's deadly problems with hand grenades.
yeah, this is the BBC, you know.
Guns
This is
don't
not
kill
some-
people. Swedish hand grenades kill people. Oh, this is horrible. This is a terrible thing. Dude, hand grenades in Yugoslavia and what are they called? Remember in the cities and the parks, they had these mines that you could step on. It would just be horrible. And so, yeah, that tech is still out there. They're like plastic and they look like colorful a lot of the time, but they could take that plastic box off of the thing. That's the thing. The Americans didn't want the box to look too friendly, so they put it in a bright colored thing that looked just like a hamburger wrapper from McDonald's.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So people were like, oh, what's
Great idea.
this? Boom.
Yeah, nice.
Wow.
but
Here's
this
some
actual, like,
shrapnel.
yeah, But this is not like kids finding them in the park. This is like gangs fighting against each other and like bombing their houses or their cars or whatever with cheap hand grenades they got from Yugoslavia. And that's been a problem in Sweden for like almost 10 years now. This even preceded the migrant crisis from 2015. Like this was started in 2011, something like that.
Right. The violence has turned some parts of Stockholm into no-go zones for paramedics, says Heinrich Johansson. Same thing I remember Denmark crime. I don't know if I can find this, but there's, crime in Denmark. You've got a huge rise in crime in Denmark with migration, but not in 2017 per se, actually going back into the 70s and 80s. And it's an interesting increase. So they're getting used to it. They're the first place.
Quick aside concerning the no-go zones, and I think you will agree on this. I haven't been anywhere in the world in any no-go zone ever. I don't know what that means. And I've been to those parts of Stockholm, which they mention, like the outskirts and the Miljonhuset project, where they just have those big like social high-rises that look like Soviet Russia. And I never felt unsafe there for 1 second. You just be nice to the people, they're nice to you. You buy a baguette, you buy a smørrebrød, you buy a cheap 2.5% beer that you can get actually at the normal supermarket. You say hello to everyone, they're nice to you. There's no no-go zones. We're like, what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah. What they want to say, like this is covered racist. What they want to say is this is a zone with a high population and migrants that we treat rather poorly and that form their parallel society, and we are scared by that. But you can be part of that parallel society in an afternoon. Just sit down, smoke some hookah with them, be nice to them, and they will be nothing but inviting to you. Like the idea of a no-go zone, of a ghetto somewhere in Europe, I don't think that's true.
That's interesting, because like you'll hear, I'm sure there's circumstances like the Breitbarts are going to say, hey, man, no-go zones are just terrible. But really, if you're following the local law, of course, that local law might be Sharia. But I mean, that's another thing.
It's not Sharia in the streets. It's just be nice to the man. Don't look at the women too profusely, don't stare.
Yeah, but also alcohol, you said like alcohol is forbidden, right? In the Islamic culture. So how come they're okay with you buying 2.5% beer?
Well, because they're drinking themselves, because they're out of a job and they're dealing hash in the park and they see me with their can. They think, oh, look, he's here at 2 PM with the can. He can't be that bad.
Right on. So
I'm not a cop, Yeah. It's not like they're all under Sharia law. It's just they have their own like social codes and you have to respect them. But it's no different if you go to downtown Baltimore.
There was that migrant stabbing, the Austrian thing. Did you hear about that? Raf, about this suspect wanted for double murder of mother, daughter in Austria, and he was found and arrested at a migrant shelter in France. Authorities arrested an African migrant wanted for the murder of his ex-partner and his daughter in Austria after he was located at an asylum home in France this week. So crossing all over Europe and going from one state to state in order to try to avoid extradition. But with the EU, they're able to extradite now. I mean, what do you think about this? Is this like a common thing? Like migrants are more prone to... Yes,
this is a common thing. I want to quote my idol Sadiq Khan, the ex-mayor of London, who said this is part and parcel for living in a modern society. And that's what it is. This is part and parcel. This is what we chose. That's what we created in the global south with all those. It's not like this migrant crisis is made by them. It's made by us. So that's what we have to face now. It's part and parcel. And I think it's very stressful to be a migrant. Like you have to jump through all those administrative hoops, learn the language, learn the culture. And I think some of them just snap and they grab a knife or they rape a girl or I don't know, some of them just might kill himself. I think there's a rather high suicide rate among immigrants. So I'm not too worried. I'm not one of those, they have the knives and they fuck up our societies and they rape our women and they take our jobs. No, I think it's fucking stressful. And if you made it easier on them, then maybe we could all like get together a little easier. But it's like I said, the no-go zone is already such a covert racist thing to say. And it's a kind of language we use all over the place. In Germany, we talk about clan criminality, which is like a covert way of saying, oh yeah, the Arab families have like substructures that we don't understand. I don't get that. Why do we have to talk like that? We will never be at an understanding with them as long as we use that kind of language.
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point with Slovenians. And so bringing in people to do jobs that other people can't do, because it'd be insane to like spend 24 hours with someone with Alzheimer's who's like screaming, but they get someone from another country to do it. Right. Yeah. And this has been going on for a long time with Arabs and with Eastern Europeans and with all sorts of people being brought into Germany, Austria, Sweden.
I have to say one word. I mean, this is already so wrong and idiotic. I mean, you cannot tell me that European innovation or whatever cannot come with something like natural remedies or many other things. There's even this Japanese system or something, or there would be so many smart solutions. It's deliberately kept compartmentalized, and you need this huge amount of resources as an excuse to import all these people that you previously bombed and traumatized.
Right.
Even then, only the rich ones can escape, that didn't get completely destroyed by a World Food Program, which destroyed their agricultural system, you know? And then, of course, you get, because what I believe is, or could well be true, is that according to statistics, many of the violent crimes are actually perpetrated, or at least convicted, so-called immigrants or non-native citizens. But just like Richard said, it's probably not so fun, you know, coming to a country like this. Many were even tricked and believed, oh, I'm going to receive everything and, you know, the honey's going to flow. Supposedly there's even be some fights or whatever, if this is true, with Ukrainian immigrants at the Tafel or something, if this is true. And they're like, what is this? You know, I mean, I don't know how they would do it, because they were expecting something else. So just again, I would like to point out, it's obvious we're all one family, but everyone through compartmentalization and different BS memes and brainwashing is being pitted against each other. And then, you know,
it's basically the Horatio Alger, the Schmied deines eigenen Glücks, make your own luck, you know, from washing dishes to becoming a millionaire. It's this, we exported this Horatio Alger USA meme towards the entire global north. Like, everybody thinks he can be. There's this funny, like, it's a very sad story about this black guy who got shot by German police. And he was a migrant from, I think, Syria or something. He was black. And he got shot by German police with a MP5 submachine gun with 5 bullets after, I think, 16 seconds of negotiation. And that happened in Dortmund. And the reason that happened in Dortmund is he wanted to go there because the Dortmund soccer club had so many black players. And he thought that would be his chance, like, to go to Dortmund. They already have so many black players. They won't feel like alienated by him being a black guy. So that's the way of, you know, the Horatio Alger fantasy he had is go to Dortmund. They have black soccer players. I can become a black soccer player in Dortmund. It's a fairy tale. And then he's stuck in this, and they actually got him to Dortmund. He wanted to go there. We made it possible through administrative means to get him into an immigrant asylum in Dortmund. It basically dawned on him what was happening, like what this fairy tale actually is. And he became suicidal, and he had a knife, and he threatened to hurt himself, and then he threatened to hurt others. And then they called the police and they shot him dead with 5 bullets.
Wow.
And so that's you know, that's the migrant realities as well. And that's like the stories we tell them about the glories of our Western culture. And that's how it sometimes ends up. And I think it's really tragic, because there's no winners in that story.
Exactly. And one other sad anecdote from Austria, and I know this firsthand, this was confirmed in public media, but I know it firsthand from a friend who's actually helping different people that are coming here. And oftentimes calling the offices in Vienna, you know, like the migrant, whatever office that's responsible. And then it turned out, like, literally for months, nobody was picking up there. They just didn't pick up. They just didn't care. Yeah. They just didn't do anything, you know? And I'm like, what is this, you know?
I mean, so all these guys, you know, we talked about this when we first met in Denmark, Richard, the idea of the immigrants that are brought to do jobs no one else wants to do, and then they're sequestered in a part of society that nobody wants to be in. It's now called a no-go zone. I mean, so what are we building?
Stop. Nobody wants to go there for 15 years. And then you get the low-income, rich parent white people, and they start gentrifying it. And then you get something like Berlin-Kreuzberg or Berlin-Neukölln or some parts of Hamburg or some parts of New York. It doesn't matter. Like, look at the Bronx, you know, once the poor people are established there, but there's some room left, that's when the bougies come in and they transform it into a nice place. And then it starts over. And then we go one circle wider outside the city. And then we get to the suburbs, and then we're going to gentrify those and make them funny and interesting again. That's the way that goes.
Wow. So I mean,
they have to be slums. They have to be derelict for 15 years before the bougies even come in and start to make it nice again. And because you need a derelict room to create something new. You can't move into a nice neighborhood and be like, oh, I'm going to paint a giant fucking mural here. You know,
how do they pick the slums? Were they slums to begin with? Were they places where, like, poor Germans who weren't doing well were already at, or like families were dying out or something?
I think you can look this up. It was called like a Million Huset project in Sweden or something. It was the same in Russia. It was the same in Eastern Germany, like all over Europe in the 60s and 70s. They built this giant housing projects, like the project in the US as well. I think it was a global phenomenon. And I think it was this idea of just, I don't know,
Put them
building
somewhere.
pods. Put them somewhere outside the city, build them small, inexpensive pods, like hush them all together, build some social center in the middle where you have a youth club and maybe a school and a kindergarten and a pub for the men and 2 shops for the women. Like they had a formula for this in Sweden. It was called ABC, Arbete, Borga, Centrum, which means working, living, and centrum is like the center in the middle where the social stuff happens. And that's the formula under which they constructed this, like thousands of gigantic living blocks. And once the white people got a little better off in the 70s, they moved out. And so we had a lot of space in the outskirts of the cities. And that's how that happened, in my opinion.
Wow. So it was like they were ghost towning and they needed to fill them with someone to keep them.
I think they weren't ghost towning. It's just like the people, as soon as they had a bit of an economic upstart, they tried to move out of there, you know?
And so then they needed people for projects. They needed pets for pet causes.
And then they needed people that could only pay the inexpensive rents and stuff like that. And, and I don't know where this is going to head it, because like I said, all this housing stuff got built in the 60s and 70s. And there's so many documentaries right now about social housing in Germany being so derelict, basically breaking down. You have like those leaking faucets and I don't know, wet ceilings and all this shit, because nobody took care of them for almost 50 years now. And so we have an entire I don't know, wave of city outskirt infrastructure slowly collapsing. Nobody's talking about it.
Maybe towards the end or not yet end of this, as we talked about.
Please, not yet. I want to bring up.
No. We're not ending yet. Yes. Just one thing. Maybe we can bring that at the end or whenever you like. Lost and found technology. Andreas, I'm sure your hyper-connected mind will immediately know, because I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it. What is the statue? I believe it was David, or maybe not David, supposedly in the Vatican, which has this net, this fishing net on top of himself, which is like super fine. Do you know what I mean? And it's made of marble, and where people say even modern stonemasonry, they couldn't recreate it.
Let's see, statue covered
with like a net. I believe it's in the Vatican. I mean, earlier I saw Martin Liedke in the chat. I'm sure he would know.
Martin,
because I think he showed it many times. Because I tried to look it up.
I've seen like some net pictures. I can't immediately find that one. If I type in like
with the search, I also couldn't find it, so that's why I'm asking.
But you know, like the thing is, so some people will tell you like, oh, they couldn't do that or something like that. I'm not one of those. I've seen, there's a TikTok that I saw, actually a guy does, and he's an Italian, he's like 26, and he does perfect statues the way they used to do it back in, you know, the old days. So there's something to, like, you take a form and you chisel away at the thing. You're using like a pen and a pencil and you're marking spots, and you're going deeper in. And so you can even measure a thing with this tool. I don't know if I can find a picture of this statue measuring tool. It's like, it pulls that, there you go, like kind of like a compass. You can use something like this to actually, and then there's another one that actually kind of like when you put your hand into the thing and it leaves the beads, it can leave like an imprint of what the distance is from each point. And you can chisel. Yeah. So people can do that. People, I mean, it's a human skill that exists. And people got really good at it. I wish I could find the example of like the Pietà is a really good, it's not a net, but you can see like the fabric into it. Where's like the proper one? This is like pretty impressive fabric work, right? And it took to do that, he'd have to put sand and stuff into the fabric, measure the fabric so that it had these points. And then he could then go somewhere else and he could go that depth with the tool exactly. And you could brush it off. And so there's ways to do that. Let me see if I can find granite statue fishing net, something like that.
But you know, what you're talking about there is the actual Masonic secrets, like the secret techniques that the Masons used to share, like from one.
Yeah, this one.
Master to another.
Right.
This one. Which image is this? What is it? Marble sculpture Francesco Querello, Release from Deception. Yeah, I can't believe that. Release from Deception.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't disbelieve that this guy could make this statue though, because there are tools that could be used to do this and be like, I feel like in the future, someone's gonna say, how could Andreas 3D print something? You know, because they don't have 3D printers anymore. That would be the same kind of logic. Like there's ways that we can measure net, and net's probably even easier to measure than fabric because it has more of a resistance to the tool. So, I mean, let's see if we can find a video of a guy, statue carving, traditional style. So we can find this. There's a guy who does this with tools. Jago the self-taught guy. This guy here. And Martin Liedke, I hope you're here to see this guy, because this guy here, Jago, he does incredible work, right? And it's pretty impressive. That looks like skin. Let me zoom in. That looks pretty good. That looks a lot like, yeah. And he'll do videos of himself actually carving this stuff just to show people it's possible because of the Ancient Aliens videos that have existed that are counterintuitive to the recent Tartarian style of belief that this can be done. I mean, it just takes maybe a certain amount of perspective, but also the measuring tool. Let me see if I can find him using his thing to measure. And he has no qualifications. He just studied this stuff and figured out how to do it. So, I mean, yeah, you have to wrap it. There we go. And then you start to chisel away at the shape. I mean, and that's just
crazy.
Right. So, I mean, it can be done. I think it can be done. And I think that's another thing. It's important to know that was done with tools. We need tools to do these things. The tools are taken from us, that's for sure, but also the skills. And so it's really fun to be like, oh, ancient aliens, you know, they did this, as opposed to recent Tartarians, because recent humans who had access to these tools and these skills and were keeping measurements of math and sciences, those are the same groups of their great grandchildren now run Lockheed or Apple or whatever and are putting in this kind of code. Raph looks
just two more references. No. Just before I forget. So one thing that's always cool, of course, is electric cars in 1908 and so on. I'm sure you showed them many times. And then, Richard, I have to ask if you already seen the most recent episode, if you're that fast. There is this whole timeline in House of the Dragon or Family.
Oh, I haven't watched any episodes yet, no.
Oh, okay. But there is a new one called the Strong Family, and they are in this court politics thing. And their sigil, they apparently have some kind of a secret society, and their sigil actually is a bee. I think even with a hive. And again,
really?
I think Andreas recently showed this, and I was like, okay, what is this again? I don't know what it's about.
What's the name of that team again? It's the House of the Dragon.
And then enter Laris Strong, maybe. Laris, Larys, and then Strong. And then B emblem or something like this.
Is Strong a bastard name? Like Snow?
Yeah, I think it's like the other Starks or something like this.
Okay.
I'll look it up. It's in the most recent episode. Okay, 1 second.
I saw the
You can
dragon.
go on. I'll look for it in the meantime.
Okay. While we do, here's the electric car charging lots back in the ancient times of 1908.
Nice.
And yeah, most cars were electric before, I think 1904 is when they started introducing more gas cars. But up to that point, almost all the cars were electric. Also, the 1906 car garage elevator is really cool. I love this thing. They used to just like park your car and then lift it, and then they park another car. And they have these in New York still. Like you can pay 20 minutes. It's like $20 an hour or something, $20 for 10 minutes. I forget. It's like crazy expensive in some of these inner parts of New York City to get in your car in one of these elevators. But they've had them since 1907, 1906 at least, and probably before that as well. I mean, the other one was crazy. Like the radio news 1940s, I think. Newspaper. I don't know if I can find the machine. Here it is, right? Is this right? There was a machine that would actually print or read a digital like screen of news, and you could send faxes essentially, and people in the home could get their newspaper. I'm not sure if I've got the device here where that's at. Radio newspaper futurism, like ancient or fax machine. It was like a fax machine, but they're imagining in schools. Yeah, radio fax, is that right? No. No, they imagine in schools having these machines that you could, here you go. The radio set prints newspapers. And so that way, like you could actually also have a digital screen that could project or read this, which eventually Apple used the same technology. The original things you connected your antenna to connect your old VCRs before the RHF coaxial cable, but they could send these, and in a classroom, you'd have a bunch of kids that could get the newest lesson of the day sent to each classroom, and the teacher could be reading it over at the same time that the students could. I mean, and this existed ages ago, like in the 40s. Projectable news as well, because before they had the micro cathode tube. So, I mean, the future is bright, but it's just like a rendition of the past for sure. Is there other?
So I sent an image that just opened the last one. It's not a bee. It's a beetle apparently.
Oh,
so maybe it's
scarab?
something else.
The
Yes, seems something along those lines. The last one is a picture of it. I guess soon they will, explain more about what this actually means.
Well, Egyptian scarab is interesting. I mean, so you get into that idea of the wiki. Let me see if I can get scarabs, popular amulets, depression seal. They came out of the dung. So they're like, if you worship poop, scarabs lived in poop and came out of poop. And so that was a big thing they thought that was really amazing about the scarabs. And were associated with life after death because they could you could think they were dead, and all of a sudden they would just be birthed because they could be in a stasis for long periods of time. And they're associated with all these like volcanoes. When somebody dies and everything dies in that area, the first thing to return are the cockroaches or the scarabs. So
okay, yeah, that maybe could also fit. So in the last one, there is a proper image where people can see the symbolism or the imagery.
Let's pull this up. There we go. Wow, yeah. So definitely trying to get to that. It looks to me kind of Arab, like it's trying to or Egyptian, trying to interact.
Are you sharing the screen?
The scarab. Oh, I'm just staring at it. Did you see the last thing I was looking at then, or no? How long was it?
Yeah.
Okay,
That
cool.
we saw. Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yes, the Egyptian golden firefly, and they're saying it's a golden firefly. Okay. Firefly.
Looks like reminds me of Jurassic Park for a reason.
Do you guys have fireflies in Europe, or is that only a Midwest thing?
No, we have fireflies.
That's legit. Yeah, they just glow. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Here's a question I wanted to bring up, like loosely concerning the topic of lost or refound technology, because I've been watching this documentary recently about this dude who printed music sheets in the very old-fashioned way, where like he hammered the notes into sheets of metal, and then he printed like papers with those sheets of metal. And he was like the last dude in Germany basically doing this way. And he was about to close his shop. And so that's a technology we're losing right now, because we're printing everything on large digital printers that are like internet fed. And we have like our, JPEG and BMP and whatever files that we just print out. And so my question is, what do you think, which technologies are we losing right now, which we will maybe regret once when the sunstorm hits, or the asteroid, or whatever, or the internet breaks down, or the
printing is the first one on my list. Printing is, yeah.
I think printing by hand, honestly, and like typeset is a rather big one. I think so as well.
We've forgotten more than they ever knew. They've forgotten more than we'll ever know about bookbinding. I think that's a huge one, like how vacuum and making these parchments out of hide and everything like that, knowing how to make something that lasts for 1,000 years. Like that's these biodegradable inks that you're printing your books with, and all the photos you have of your phone. Like imagine someone's trying to rob you. You're like, look, I have a wife and kids. Wait. Let me just show you this. I gotta
Let me just sweat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
funny. It's funny you say that, because that's basically the larger point I wanted to get at, is the knowledge we're losing right now, the technologies we're losing right now are mainly about preserving. Like my grandmother still knew how to cook like vegetables, like in glasses, we call it Einkochen in German. Yeah, exactly. And stuff like that. My grandparents canned shit at home. They had large, giant freezers with deer carcasses that my grandpa shot himself in the basement and stuff like that. They knew how to be self-reliant. They had chickens and livestock and shit like that. And people had photo albums, and people had books, and people had all this stuff that we have digital. People had video cassettes and all this Once the
Dude.
jump went from analog to wholly digital and then to wholly like wire transferred, I think we have lost the ability to preserve stuff, and that's going to bite us in the ass once this entire digital infrastructure goes down. And I think that's a huge fucking problem. And I don't think the prepper bucket and the Alex Jones water filter, that's not the answers we need for that problem.
No, it's vinyl. Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. There'll be so much of the digital world will be lost. It means like the last 20, 40 years will be lost, but there will be things before that. So society might just forget and move on, just move on from 1930 again or something.
Can you think about this American society where they just have all like Andrew Dice Clay and Gallagher VHS tapes, and so the entire comedy style just goes back like 30 to 40 years?
That's what happened to me, because I didn't have cable. When I was a kid, I used to watch VHS. That's literally my problem.
Yeah, but I think this we're losing all technologies of like preservation and of self-reliance. Like everything is spoon. Like cooking is another one. Like I'm still able to cook, but I see plenty of people in their 20s who just do the HelloFresh and the DoorDash and the whatever. And like even if they cook themselves, it's just pre-packaged portions that they like put together like Legos. There's no intuition, there's no feeling for the stuff, there's no shopping for it yourself.
You guys know about Stratica, the Kansas Underground Salt Museum?
No, what's that?
So in Kansas, there's this huge salt mine made of crystal salt. And I don't know if you guys are Austrians, you guys don't know much about salt mines or anything, right? But no, this is probably also in Salzburg. They've got a similar thing here. I mean, I've been into these places, and it's completely pure. You can't get sick. Nothing can survive in it. It's a controlled temperature. It's super dry. And they have, a human history museum at first, which is really weird. Like, hey, like this is what humans used to do. And then once you get further deeper into it, it's like tapes for like Disney and the military. And you go deeper than
preservation.
They do celluloid preservation, and then they do magnetic tape preservation, and they do vinyl preservation, and then they do automobile. It goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, and then it goes even further. I mean,
and that's public. You can go there.
You can only go to part of it, but yeah, you can go into the front of it. But like, obviously, it's military control. Like,
I'm about to say, like, how many levels deep does this go, and when do we get, pre 1850?
Well, and that's the other thing, like salt mine hotels, like in Austria, I was at. There's these things where like the salt miners built these things so they could have a salt cathedral, and while they're mining for 38 days underground, you gotta have a church. And then they've got, hotel rooms to bring the cute Austrian girls that they meet at the salt mine underground bar or whatever, their wives. And they have these, places where you can meet with your wife. Essentially, if you're in the 1800s and you're mining all the time, you can have a bed underground and stuff. But this is just the kind of thing that you can imagine existing with more censorship the further you go, right? And people living there. NORAD underground city is interesting. This is the disclosed one. Let me see if I can find
that's
examples.
The Stargate one. Yeah,
but there's a ton of other NORAD's just the one you've heard about, right? They have these huge doors like from
but it's so wild, because I think NORAD to me was such a meme, like in the 80s and 90s with movies like War Games. Like NORAD was everywhere, I thought, as a kid. Like it was so prevalent, and then all of a sudden it switched to Area 51. Like the trend in secret conspiracy sites was changed in the 90s.
Yeah, they definitely deviated from it, but like the idea of there being a bunch of these other cities is pretty much on the wiki page. They'll tell you like, yeah, NORAD's the one you've heard about because it got out, but that was because we wanted to announce to the world that we had the kind of capacity to have, international mutually assured destruction and therefore peace. But there are these cities. I wish I'd seen photos of them before. They've got trains, rails, basketball courts. There you go. Something like this. Underground.
In case anybody ever wondered where the black budget, also, Catherine Austin Fitts and Doug Journalist show these 22 trillions missing in the official budgets, if anyone's wondering where all that money goes.
But I mean, and they told us for good reason that the world would end eventually, and these would be the people that get to survive it. And that's what we were totally comfortable with hearing back in the 20s to the 80s, that the world was going to end because of something horrible. And that we'd have to, only the rich would survive.
Honestly, I still believe only their world is going to end. And they hope that everyone else commits suicide before that. But yeah, I'm not planning to comply.
it seems kind of crazy to live underground in all of these giant cities, but then there are 30,000 people living in at least NORAD, and there's like 60,000 living in other DUMBs. Where can I want to find the basketball court. Like that was the funniest. There's like a park with a basketball court underground at NORAD. Oh, and then there's these guys, things, the Manhattan size underground military bunker in Dakota, right? So we have these huge, look at that. They're like cooking with like nice refrigerators and stuff. It's the size of Manhattan. 10,000 people will hold and live there. Look at these. What the heck? Like these are like Japanese style apartments. Like that is crazy. That's
Get in the
nuts.
pod.
Get in the pod, just deal with the pod. But then you've got these examples again. Like there are these areas where the very wealthy elite have, chandeliers. So the underground is pretty sweet. I don't know. There was a thing, Richard, you wanted to share? What are you gonna say?
Yeah, it was the question about the losing technologies we have.
Oh.
And the larger point is, I think we are living in a losing technology right now, which is the internet. Because remember this saying from like 10 or 20 years ago, where it's like the internet doesn't forget? And I think that part is over, and the internet is pretty fucking good at forgetting right now. And so we are living inside of a losing technology that is actually losing information as we speak. Because I'm at this point right now where I can't even say, am I bombarded by Mandela effects, or do they change reality every other day? I Google some information I remember, because it's never as I remember, never. It's so fucking weird.
That's the success of the Mandela effect, though, because then it means that you don't know whether it's the media changing it or reality changing. Do you remember Cowboy Bebop? They're like, we don't know exactly what happened before the fall of the internet, right? And that's the whole point of the show in a lot of the ways.
And
sorry, just one thing. Have you guys been following this Kiwi Farms thing?
No.
Are you familiar with that?
Was it Kiwi Farms?
Kiwi Farms is a public forum where people document
Kiwi Farms. That's fun. That reminds me of this one time in 2001, I was in Germany and there was this commercial and it said Stewie Wunder. And I felt like that was amazing. But okay, Kiwi Farms. Yes.
Kiwi Farms. It's a public forum where people document, like, I don't know, weird stuff about transsexuals or internet lolcows like Chris Chan or stuff like that. It's basically, it's a forum version of 4chan, and it's been around
a nice autistic community, and it's been
it's a lovely autistic community, and I've been going there for almost 10 years just to read stuff. I'm not a registered member, but I'm very well aware of the lore and of the site. I know I watch the streams that the owner does every week. Like I'm in that world. And Kiwi Farms is being like basically bombarded by political correctness warriors right now.
Wow.
And that is because some people that got documented on that public forum want these informations about themselves memory hold. They want those sorted things they posted on sites that no longer exist, that people screenshotted or archived. They want those gone.
Doxing and swatting. Okay.
Yeah, that's the public story. No doxing or swatting has ever occurred from Kiwi Farms. That's nonsense.
So wait, you're saying who wants to have the internet forget? Well,
there's a very active trans person who did some, let's say, lewd things in their past and not too proud of, and those things are documented on Kiwi Farms, and so this person made it their mission.
This is interesting. I know Marjorie. I used to live at the house she was swatted at. Okay, so Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia, said in an interview with Newsmax that she was swatted twice in August. Greene pointed to Kiwi Farms as the culprit and called for the site to be taken down. Do they have a problem with Tim Pool over at Kiwi Farms? Is that what this is about? Weird.
Well, Kiwi Farms is they have no rules. They laugh at people on the internet. They're not politically affiliated, just trolls. It's a troll site.
Yeah.
And so there's people on the far left, like the trans person. There's people on the far right, like
there's tons of hard leftists on Kiwi Farms too. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to say, like, people on the left and on the right hate that site because it documents their nonsense. Like Ethan Roth hates that site, Marjorie Taylor Greene hates that site, but lefty people like Keffels or I don't know Ethan Klein from H3, he hates that site as well. Nobody likes that site. And so they made it their mission to have that site blocked and deleted. And this is where it gets interesting. Have their archive sites deleted. And so we're in a phase where the internet is very, very capable of forgetting. And that's something that honestly scares me a lot.
What was the name of the server fire that destroyed our data? Discord server. No, let's see. OBS server fire. If I type in French server fire, French ONS, is that what it was? ONS, I think it was. This was a big deal to me. So we had this huge Discord, thousands of members, tons of threads, lots of groups. By the way, the Discord's back. I want to just also say that if you're not a member yet, get back into the Discord, click on the Tartary Discord link at tartarydiscord.com, and it'll take you to the Tartary Discord. It is awesome. Again, we've got it back, and there are people that are in all sorts of ranks and roles that are doing things, and new pages opening up. And I bridged it to every Matrix room. So even if this does get pulled down again, it's all backed up on Matrix. So I'm worse than Kiwi Farms. But according to Reuters,
Kiwi Farms is still on the Tor browser and stuff like that. It's not entirely gone. They have like 5 top level domains, and 3 of them got dropped by Cloudflare. That's a whole saga behind it. You can look it up. It's really interesting. But in the long run, this is about the attack on Section 230. And once you get that in the US, you will have the same neutered bullshit internet we have here with the NetzDG and Paragraph 13, and you will fucking not like that.
Dude, so OVH, that was the company. So Discord was using OVH, which is overseas, instead of the AMS, which is AMW or AWS. There we go. AWS, which is Amazon servers. They were using OVH, which is a French company. This is their building where all of our data was stored. Granted, we have lots of this data saved because we had the Foundry and everything else, but a good like 30 to 40% of the data, like especially in the last 6 months, was deleted when this place burned down. And it was right after our Discord server was deleted. It was deleted for like whatever reason, like political correct nonsense. We took it to the Discord. We took it to OVA. I took it to the European Union Commission Court to say, hey, you know, this is our data, because EU laws, you can't just take someone's data, even if you want to get it off your server, you got to give it back. And now they can't because everything's been destroyed. And so it's an interesting circumstance. Convenient. Right. And it's not just me. Don't get me wrong. Like, as narcissistic as I am, the fire destroyed, what was it? Like millions of, OVH fire, lost websites. It was like 2 million lost websites. Millions of websites were destroyed. All kinds of private little websites, like the good ones. You know what I mean? Not just websites that you hear about all the time that are on AWS anyway. These are like some French hackers or some Dutch brewery or some like local community of web artists, and all of these kinds of people that had their own websites, building their own code, building their own little startup companies in Austria, Slovenia, France, everything. All of that kind of stuff it was all backed up on their cloud, destroyed. OVH destroyed it. So that's been crazy. And it seems really kind of similar to this idea of like destroy the data.
Yeah, and like go for the walled gardens, force them into Instagram, force them into Facebook, force them into TikTok, destroy the small forums, you know. And I think that's a concerted effort, and it scares me.
Who burned down that house? Just briefly, who burned down the house? Because there were other website and information there, which probably was maybe even more sensitive than your Tartaria research.
Oh, that's
maybe.
Absolutely.
So
I believe that. That's actually what was kind of my point. But so OVH has a hunch about what caused the fire, which means, you know, think about how they put that. The CEO of OVH has hinted that shoddy maintenance workers on a couple of UPSs could have ignited the blaze. In other words, you've got these power units that are the backup batteries. And they're saying that some shoddy maintenance work, meaning they didn't replace the backup battery, meant that these backup batteries exploded. And when they exploded, then it would have caused a fire maybe, and then there was no one there to stop it. That's the official hunch.
How likely is that with the amount of money they have to provide security and the clout they would potentially lose if they really lost important clients or whatever, you know? So
right. Let's remember that the French government also used OVH. So if anybody had data they thought was more valuable than
so
mine,
it's like WTC Building 7 or whatever it was.
Right. This is exactly on that wave. That's that vibe. So Clava confirmed that go ahead.
No, just one sentence. Also, when you had the election in the US, maybe you heard about this. They also ransacked some servers in Germany or something.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Apparently there was this whole interlinkage and I don't know, triple hacking, whatever.
Let's definitely connect that. Farmer Story Raid, Caesar, all these. Yeah, let's look at all the Snopes ones, because of course those are at the top of the list.
Yeah.
But that works for me, actually. Reading Snopes and knowing that it's covering up the truth almost always works. If you actually just read the article, it's like, oh, okay. Did a seized server in Germany prove Trump won 410 electoral votes? Sort of. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, it does. And they say in mid-2020, when United States presidential Trump was still contesting the outcome of the presidential election, they realized that the German servers, the System and or Sichtel secure electronic voting companies, had supposedly been seized by U.S. Army in Frankfurt, Germany. Right? Because the Dominion voting machines have international clouds, and these servers showed that Trump had actually won by a landslide. Everyone says this isn't true. I'll probably get in trouble just for reading the Snopes article, guys. But hey, this is the deal. Yeah. Well, you heard about it. We'll put it that way. And that's in connection because that happened just before this fire. So the idea that there's a connection to the military intelligence and OVH with France and Germany. I mean, Macron could easily be supporting the efforts here. And the more they did overseas, the less they can get in trouble the same way in the United States, because this all happened somewhere else where they were doing it in conjunction with governments that made it legal for them to be doing their job. So there's that. But the SBG2 data center completely destroyed, and 4 rooms of the SBG1 that were closed were also lost in the inferno. And the fire department responded to the halls. Oh, another interesting thing about the OVH fire. Let me see if we can find a picture for you again. This is where it happened. So it's on a river. This is the fire truck. It's a boat. They're taking water and they're just pouring water into it. They had tons of water, tons of access to water. It was right next to, it was like in a wet zone. An interesting thing that they had complete access to as much water as they could have possibly needed, and still lost this entire building made out of, because it's not like servers are made out of wood. Or even plastic, because these are like major servers.
There's lots of cables there. Cables burn like crazy.
That is true. Like they and there's the plastic will melt, and it could have been like horrible. But I don't know. The whole thing with the OVH fire seemed pretty suspect to me.
The thing is, you remember that internet outage in Canada a couple of months ago, or like a couple of weeks ago? I think 2-3 months ago, where like
I don't
70% of Canada was like without internet for, I don't think, like 24 hours or something.
Wow. MK Canada, where were you guys? You didn't even tell me this. Canada's internet outage caused by maintenance with quote,
exactly.
with quotes.
What is maintenance? And,
what is maintenance with apostrophe? I mean, that is like they're literally doing that. They're putting bunny ears on either side of the word. Okay.
And the thing is, we heard about this in Germany for one day, and then it got memory hold, because you don't want to frighten the other Western countries by, look, 70% of their fucking internet and their banking systems just broke down for almost 2 days. You don't want to put that like too high on the list. So, and to this day, they don't exactly came out with what caused it. But every time something like that happens, I think it's such a great way to memory hold some data, to memory hold some stuff that you just have on some server, on some hard drive, whatever. And the more widespread that is, you remember that time when WhatsApp and Facebook had all those outages, the server outages, and every time they had one of those outages, something in the user interface had changed. It's so fucking weird.
Those updates. Well, so company CEO Tony Stafari said the failure followed a maintenance update in our core network. Transport, banking, emergency services were all hit Friday's blackout, with 9/11 hotlines and bank ATMs left unavailable. Canadians flocked to coffee shops and libraries to find a connection. Wow. They flocked to the community.
And you didn't even hear about this in the US, right? This is
no, I didn't know. I'm sure maybe someone did, but it's interesting that I didn't, because I do a show about Canada. But the thing here that for more than 15 hours lost, this reminds me of that Pokemon Go game, because you're like, well, what happens if we incentivize and decentivize them being in their homes? We can predict where they're going to go. And they can hedge your bets, which coffee shop they're going to run to. Are they going to go to the library? Well, we can pretty much predict that based on how much money they have in their pocket, and like what coffee shop they've been to recently, and what they've liked and what ads they saw yesterday. So let's see what they're most likely to do. I mean, right? Like, just, this is going to be the thing. Studying human behavior will be interesting again.
But that'll be great. Will this mean in the morning I'll get my bank statement and be like, your projected expenses today is, 1 sandwich, 1 coffee. You want to already pay now? Like, great. I'll be done for the day.
They used to have this like meme that went around the internet in the 90s, and it was like a guy tries to buy something and they won't let him because his calorie count is too big, and they make him buy a certain thing that lowers his price. Like, they're getting so involved, invasive in your life. I mean, But do you feel like that's how real is that, like in Europe? And you don't have the freedom of pursuit of happiness, right? They can get involved with your life. Is that gonna happen?
Well, depends on what you mean with getting involved with our love. But I want to bring up a different thing. Like I know a bunch of people with private healthcare that get incentivized to do some crazy stuff by their healthcare provider. Like they have
Talk about America.
those, like they have like the Fitbit armbands and trace their steps, or they have like they bring in receipts that they go to yoga 3 times a week, and that will like deduce the price for their healthcare, or they will get like special bonuses. Like this one guy I know, he did like 10 kilometers of jogging every week, and if he did that for a month, he got like 2 cinema tickets from his healthcare provider. It's super weird.
I knew a girl who worked at Whole Foods, and the way it works is they give you a discount to buy food, but if your body mass index is lower and you're not smoking and you're healthier, the discount is higher. So you get even more of a discount if you're from them. The better.
And it should be the other way around. Like the fatties should be allowed to have the nutritious food at a lower price, you know?
They gotta help them, man.
I have to step out for just 1 second. I'll be right back.
Well, we were about to hit the end. Do you want to?
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
I was gonna say, if you want to say, this has been about 2 hours in. So if you guys want to say anything else, and we can do I want to show Raf's page. Do you have a place that you want to show? Richard, do you have like a website you want me or a link?
No. I just said that's my final story for today because of losing technologies and all that. I actually deleted my Twitter, Reddit, and Spiegel Online and 2 other accounts because I'm done with the losing technology of the internet, and I'm trying to step away from there.
So if I look for like pitching movies into the void, I'm not going to find you.
You'll find the void finally.
Oh, the void. Finally, or just do I type the void?
No. You'll find the void. It's
gone.
Literally,
literally, pitching in the void is voided.
Yeah, exactly. It's voided.
You can't find Richard. He doesn't even want to be here. I twisted his arm. All right. Well, then also if you go,
I'll be back, but I have nothing to shill. That's my point.
That's legit. All right.
Well, last thing.
I
want to say is, even if the internet closes down or whatever, I really very much believe much of the tech we use is just externalized spiritual technology we already contain within ourselves. And if we were to turn off all the disruptive EMF fields, I'm pretty sure telepathy would go even much higher than it already is for those that are somehow connected. So thank you,
even
Richard,
if
very much.
Even if we weren't using, if we just stopped using the technology, we would start focusing on each other's faces more. And you have to remember how good people used to be at poker. Yeah.
Yeah, and last thing is, recent Targaryens. Andreas, I'm not sure how we're going to do this. Maybe invite some Game of Thrones expert or something, or everyone in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll see Ian
or something if you want to see like a Targaryen presentation, because I really think that'd be pretty cool and could catch on to some more mainstream who anyhow they want to live in that fantasy world. And maybe, Andreas, you can show them there actually is that fantasy world and we can reclaim it. Which is what I like.
And that's my grift. I like that. All right. Well, make sure you guys also go to Act Like You Know. Wait, I lost the window? Wrong window. Hold on. Go to the Act Like You Know 26, and you can watch my videos in German, as well as a bunch of rad interviews by Raphael, because he's got some pretty good stuff with some pretty interesting people all over the world, and, also check out, I don't know if you've got Team Rabbit Hole.
Just linked. Go on my About page. About and then there's my website, and there's everything you can possibly find.
But subscribe to his YouTube, because it helps to do that. But also, yes, go to commenciate.at, and you can find a whole bunch of cool, including today's video, a Martin Hip video, and a bunch of Team Rabbit Hole videos, which hopefully Team Rabbit Hole is back on the bounce pretty soon, so we should talk about that as well, because it's
indeed
hugely important. Shout out to Jim. All right, love you guys. I will see you next time. I think I'm doing tonight. I will have Think Tank. So join us again later tonight to watch Think Tank. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Andreas. Thanks, everyone.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Targaryen.
Recent Targaryen. Recent Targaryen. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians.